Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And this is your unofficial home for everything Alberta independence. We got some big news, so let's tell the audience.
Yes, so things will be changing a bit around here, and people were just asking about what times and what days we do live streams, and that's going to be changing.
Yeah, we're gonna start doing live streams every day, Monday through Friday. So we're also changing the time from between 5 and 7 p.m. before the Fringe comes on. I didn't realize we were conflicting with the Fringe's show, so we have similar audiences. I thought it was best to move our show up and shorten it by an hour, but add extra days. So Monday through Friday, I think we're the only Alberta independent show that will be going 5 days a week, every day after work or every day after you're done your daily routine, I guess.
Yes.
One of the big reasons we did that is because we want to start doing more interviews. We're just arranging all the settings and technological aspects we need to do right now. We're going to be testing it out next week. We're making a list of everybody in the Alberta independence movement. That list was huge, by the way. There's like 30 people on the list we want to interview. I'm making an American list with American content creators, thought leaders, stuff like that. And then an international list. We want to try to broaden Alberta independence out beyond Canada and Alberta, because when censorship comes in, we're going to have to probably rely a little bit on international content creators. So I like to make them aware of what's going on before we actually need them. Mm-hmm.
So because we have done some interviews, but we are still kind of new at this. Like you get used to a routine of doing live streams, for example, and edited videos, and then you don't know how to do the rest of the things. So it will take over this weekend and next week, and then we're going to try to contact people.
Yeah, it's actually is a lot of new technology to do.
Interviews.
Yeah, interviews, remote interviews and stuff like that. So we're figuring it out. We're doing test interviews on ourselves to make sure the audio and everything works. Also, our edited videos now, we're going to do just Saturday and Sunday. I noticed the quality was coming down a little bit because doing videos 7 days a week, plus as many live streams as we were doing, the quality just wasn't high enough. So live streams Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, there will be edited videos. So that's 7 days a week of content. Plus, every Wednesday, we're hoping to have an interview starting in a few weeks with the interviews.
Yes.
Okay, let's read some comments.
And before we start.
And I'm going to fix my camera while
before we start. Thank you so much for being here. It's not working. Oh, there we go. Thank you so much for being here. And because we always forget to say it, please subscribe, like, and share the live stream. It really does help us out, and it's free for you. And also, we read all your comments. So if you really want to comment you can send a super chat. We do prioritize those. We stop the show and everything. But if not, after a few stories, we read all your comments. So make sure to let us know what you're thinking. Thank you so much.
And hopefully the camera's going to be working from here on in.
Yes. Steve Zerfaro says, I'm excited. Me too.
Yeah, I am as well, especially going 5 days a week. It's going to be fairly exciting, and especially because I'm running the X account now. By the way, we do have our X account is our companion to the show. Every single story we cover, we post on there. I do notice we get like 8 subscribers and then we lose 2 or 3. I think it's because I post liberal articles that we're going to talk about and they think I'm in support of it. But I'm using the article to kind of set a narrative and talk about things.
Yeah, on the show. Steve Zerfaro says, I'm going to visit one of the Alberta Petition locations in Phoenix. Wow.
Well, and that's fantastic because Steve's from the U.S. Yeah. When he goes down there, take some video of it and post it on your Instagram and stuff so everybody can see it. Yeah,
you can send it via DM and we can play it here to see how it was. But good. Support.
And it's nice to see Americans coming around and supporting this. They had the thing in Cairo that went down too. That made international news. So.
And Cole says, hey everyone, hello Cole. And Sam also says, howdy. And Cole was asking, are Nat and Guy doing any shows this weekend? I'm not acquainted with their schedule. Well, it's changed all. The schedule has changed now. So now it's Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Alberta time.
Yeah, 5 to 7 p.m. So you can roll right into the Fringe, hopefully.
Yes. And hold on. Sam says 38 degrees Celsius in Phoenix. Yeah, I'm not a hot like a heat person. I like Mexico City and the surroundings because it's mild most of the time, except when it rains. But Vancouver was too cold for me. But then I don't know if I could live somewhere where it's that hot.
Well, I hated the rain when I first moved back to Vancouver. I lived half in California, and I was born in Vancouver and lived there half my life. And I'll tell you, when I moved back to Vancouver from California, I got really, really depressed, but I got used to the rain over time. And I don't like it when it's sunny every day, especially because I work inside almost 24/7.
David Walter, hello, says, every day Carney gives Albertans more reasons to separate. Literally almost every day, yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of big news. And talking to Albertans brought up a subject. I had to respond to him, and we'll get into that conversation in a bit. But national conservatives need to start coming around to supporting Alberta independence.
And also, hello, Harmony says, thank you for all you do in regard to signing the petition. I stopped into one of the signing stations on a very street in Calgary because I know I have strong inspiration. And thank the beautiful something. I was there for about 25 minutes and at least 12 or more people signed the petition. And again, if you haven't signed yet or still, please go do so as soon as possible. The link to find locations is down below in our description, or you can go to stayfreealberta.com. stayfreealberta.com and then look at where the locations are. Sometimes they can send people out, or you can plan to have a group of people and one of the canvassers will go and be at whatever event you're having.
Yeah, we're on a shortened timeline. Most people probably know this, but if you're working a lot, you might be one of those people that would have signed the petition but haven't. So if you're hearing this for the first time, you want to do this by the end of the month because they want to get this thing certified and put pressure on the Albertan government going forward.
And Steve Safara says, stream anytime you like, just make sure to turn notifications on. And everybody else, yes, please hit the notification bell if you're not getting notified because YouTube doesn't like us. And says, for sound, use a cloud lifter. Well, today we had a huge issue.
Oh, God.
We thought maybe the whole set was going to be torn down because of you.
Yeah, I was setting everything up for live interviews. I'm having to work with the ATEM, the computer and stuff. So I was working in Nat's position where she sits because that's where the main computer hookups are for. And I had it. So then I got up to do something. And these desks that you see us sitting in are desks that can raise up and lower, but we never raise them up and lower it. I accidentally hit the button on Nat's desk that raises it to the max level.
All the way up.
Things started falling. I lift the desk. I started yelling at Nat, oh, stop it.
Because my desk is under his desk. So when it goes up, his desk got pushed almost all the way up.
Yeah.
And we had to run and almost the whole set, because we have a bunch of cables and stuff connected underneath and within the desk. So all the cables were kind of being pulled up. We almost lost the whole set.
Yeah, we use a Rodecaster Pro 2. So I don't think we need a cloud lifter because it does a lot of the sound editing for us.
But let us know if the sound works because, again, a bunch of cables might have been moved. So thank you. Sam says, I signed Add Crowchild and Bear's Paw in and out in 1 minute. Good. And good to get it done as soon as possible.
Okay, the sound seems to be working. All the cords were ripped out of the sound device earlier, so I'm glad about that.
Yep. Harmony says, I then stopped into a second petition signing station and helped one of the coordinators because his vehicle needed a boost. Oh, nice.
Yeah, and please, even if you've already signed the petition, you probably went out there, signed it, take a video, take a picture, even if you're not going to sign again. This is a historic moment, and people that signed this petition, it's something to really be proud of once we do get our independence.
And hold on. It says very busy street in Calgary. Oh, that's good. So more people can sign. Dill Bilver, hello, says good evening, everyone. And because I want to get to that last question because someone asked something.
Okay, let's get to the question and then we're going to get into the articles here.
Okay. The Bilver says, I was listening to another podcast. Matt was taken, or it sounded like it was taken out of the Liberal government's page, someone said. And Primors 007 says, evening, Nat and Guy, hello, thank you for being here. Says, do you stream every day? Didn't see anything yesterday. We're going to start next week, streaming Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Alberta time.
Yeah, and we're going to start writing it. We're going to write it in our description and everything else because these are going to be our permanent times going forward. I want to really ramp it up now before the summertime because I know there's going to be that push from the mainstream media and the government. So I want people to know they can come to our channel 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and we're going to have all the information and anything that's going on and any government pushback that's happening. And
we will be releasing edited videos Saturdays and Sundays because we want to also be able to have more in-depth and make them worthwhile. while having a live show that gives updates that are more prescient.
Yeah, and the Critical Compass, as well as Nadine, has really inspired us to start trying to do interviews and reaching out to people. They have been absolutely fantastic to this point. So if you don't know what those channels are, they both focus on Alberta independence, and they get a lot of intellectuals and a lot of people big within the movement and ask critical questions and kind of brainstorm things that should be thought about and talked about. Okay, let's get into the stories for today.
Yes, so starting with Alberta, of course.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
Yes. And from Rise of Alberta says, the greatest country in the world, and it's not even a country yet, Alberta. Yes, when do we get an Alberta flag emoji?
Yeah, and this was actually bigger than a lot of people think. This isn't just a joke for me. I've been trying to think of ways to get into the zeitgeist, really ingrain ourselves into the culture. Getting an emoji flag on X would be huge. We have to figure out at this point, Elon Musk would be a big supporter of Alberta independence.
Well, I think you can make emojis yourself. It's just a matter of being able to insert them into whatever you're writing.
Yeah,
but it is a thing you can do.
We should figure out how to do that. And then on top of that, getting different artists to make songs about Alberta, especially as the summertime ramps up, because we don't want them to start talking about it, making songs after the vote happens. We want it to kind of peak in the summertime. So reaching out to these people, we got a list of people we're going to start trying to reach out to, interview them. Some musicians are going to be on that list. So yeah. Yes. And just there's a lot of different ideas. We're going to make a video about all the different cultural ideas and things we can do to kind of expand the movement broader than what it is right now. So we don't want the federal government to be the one to set the international narrative on this.
And also a bit of clearing up of information from Jeff Baruch says, quote, rumors have been circulating that your personal information would be made public and posted online if you sign the independence petition. Unfortunately, this couldn't be further from the truth and has led to people being scared of exercising their democratic right to petition the government. Per the Citizen Initiative Act, individuals can be fined up to $500,000 and organizations up to $1 million for collecting, using, disclosing, or retaining personal information, except as authorized under the Act. And from Elections Alberta Citizen Initiative frequently asked questions, it says, if I sign the petition, will my personal information be made public? And no, they're not available for viewing, publishing, copying, or made otherwise available to anyone.
Yeah, and I put this specifically on here because a lot of people are scared. We have seen Igor talking to a lot of immigrant families off of camera, and they said, no, they're scared. They understand what happened in their home country, and the federal government's going to come after them and revoke their immigration if they sign the petition. That being said, if you haven't signed, there are a lot of things to kind of protect your identity. So I hope you do sign and do support Alberta independence. That being said, if the immigrant community is really scared to sign this petition, but they're in favor of it, it's a good thing because that means they're not going to vote against us. And I think people that are in favor of Alberta independence are really motivated to come out to the polls on October 19th.
And these are just scaremongering and fear tactics, of course, from those that don't want to see this succeed.
$1 million. That's how much the fine is for sharing personal information collected by the Alberta Independence Petition. Unfortunately, there's a rumor going around that by signing the petition, your information will get posted online, and that's completely false. With fines up to $500,000 for individuals and up to $1 million for organizations, you can rest assured that canvassers will move mountains and run rivers dry to protect your personal information. But don't take my word for it. Look it up for yourself by visiting the link to Elections Alberta's website below. And once you have the peace of mind you need, find your nearest location and go sign the Alberta Independence Petition. Don't put it off any longer. Our futures are at stake.
Yeah, and at a certain point, I understand it's the government they're fearing here because they've seen what the government did with bank accounts with the trucker convoy and the overreach during the jibby jab era. And I mean, we can just go on and on and on. That being said, there comes a time in history you just have to stand up, put your neck out, and take the risk. This is that time because if Alberta doesn't gain its independence, the direction Canada is going, they're going to drag Alberta right off the cliff with them.
But also specifically because and if you are scared of the government, you should not be scared of your government. It's one more reason to actually go sign the petition, knowing what they've done, knowing how they've treated their own citizens, and continue to do so. Bill C-9 continues to move forward, so the Censorship Act, and Bill C-22 as well. So use it also as a motivating factor.
Yeah, and we have covered Bill C-9 a lot, and the headlines are as Bill C-9 passes. hasn't quite passed. It still has to go through 3 more things in the Senate. The Fringe kind of ironed this out, and he had a really good video on that. So the censorship's not quite in yet, but I'm thinking maybe the summertime. But they have 3 more censorship bills just waiting on the shelf. I think Mark Carney is really waiting for that majority government, which might happen on the 12th of next month. We're going to get more into that in a little bit later.
Well, but also just the fact that this is an idea that the government has. This is something that they want to push forth. And it's not the first censorship bill they've tried to or succeeded in passing. So again, if it passes or not, the point is that it's already there and in their minds, and they'll try to continue to do whatever they can to implement, because this is not the first time they've tried even to implement, for example, restrictions on religious speech. But now it's just getting closer to being a reality.
Well, and you wonder, well, how these rumors getting spread that your identity is going to be revealed if you sign this petition. This is money flooding into NGOs, private citizens, and other organizations that can't spread these lies by normal means because they could be liable to prosecution. So they're going to use individuals here.
Moving on. John Alberta Patriot says, quote, "So when are you going to get behind the Alberta independence movement? Seriously, we've been complaining about the same things in unison for decades, hoping that if we vote a little harder, maybe we can get some changes in the right direction. The system is working exactly as it was designed. We need to change the system." And he was responding to...
We'll read my comments. We can respond to. I'll show you how I responded. That being said, John brought up a fantastic conversation here, and John is always bringing up really good conversations. And a lot of people within the Alberta independence movement are bringing up different conversations, but this is definitely one of them. And I even go a step further. I can understand why people maybe haven't gotten behind the Alberta independence movement if they're nationalists, but come the 12th of next month, once Carney gets that majority government, I'm going to have no sympathy for nationalists anymore that say, well, I want a national Canada. Alberta is going to be the only way forward after Carney gets that majority government. And I'm going to really start calling out other channels and other content creators that have been avoiding Alberta independence at all costs because they have national audiences.
And loyalties to the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
So you said...
and I wrote 2 comments because they didn't fit.
Yes. So the guy says, the 12th of next month are the 3 by-elections. If Carney secures a majority government, there are no more excuses to not get behind Alberta independence for National Conservatives. I've been saying this on my show for the last few weeks. And also says, Conservatives from other provinces have been oddly quiet about Alberta independence. It's time for all Conservatives to get behind Alberta independence.
Yeah, and when I was saying other...
And he was responding to, Mario Zelaya.
Yeah, and when I was saying conservatives from other provinces, I'm talking about a lot of content creators. We need to get content creators from other provinces on board with this thing. They're scared because a lot of their audience are Pierre Poilievre supporters. But these Pierre Poilievre supporters, if he loses and Carney gets that majority government... What, you're going to wait 3 more years by the time, if he's lucky enough to win a minority government, the country's going to be completely destroyed. At the point Carney gets that majority government, the only option for Canada is Alberta independence. In my mind, it's already only Alberta independence, but I will give some leeway to National Conservatives. But come the 12th or whenever Carney secures that majority government, I'm not going to have that lenience on National Conservative commentators anymore.
And even if you really do like Poilievre and you want to support Poilievre and the National Conservative Party, if they got in with a majority, it would take them decades to remove all of the pain and hurt that has been caused upon Canada. So it wouldn't be immediate. You would still be having to live under the same conditions you've been complaining and living under and having to deal with for the past 10 years.
Well, the system's rotten at its very conception. Yeah. And that's the thing. I was watching that interview with Nadine, Bruce Party, and one other gentleman, and it was fantastic. They were talking, what do you want in the Constitution? How much power should the state have? How are we going to limit this power? What are the mistakes Canada made? The American system's better, but they made a lot of mistakes too. We need to stop this at the founding of the country. And that's the opportunity you're going to have to hit a real reset button and to build a constitution that is kind of self-regulating and doesn't add all that bloat on year after year.
And also in May, I believe, there's going to be an important debate happening regarding Alberta independence. From Rise of Alberta, quote, Keith Wilson has accepted invitations to debate Jason Kenney on Alberta independence. If remaining in Canada is really in Alberta's best interest, then the Remain side should be able to prove it. Keith is ready to put that claim to the test.
Yeah, and that's the future president of Alberta. I know he keeps saying no, but he's the George Washington of Alberta, if anything. We talked about this the other day. I haven't actually seen this clip. I watched the full interview. So hopefully he talks about Kenney, because he showed him a lot of respect. And he said there's not a lot of people that are going to step up and even have the debate, because they're going to look foolish, to be quite honest. So I'm glad Kenney is stepping up. That way we can kind of put the clips out there and show what the nationalist point of view is. There's very few nationalists even willing to have the debate at this point. Bruce Party did have a debate with Jason Kenney. Keith Wilson is even a better representative.
But can I ask about my old friend Jason Kenney, who I think has fallen into being the advocate for the Remain side of this referendum? I'd like your thoughts on him, Keith. First of all, I understand that you may have been invited to debate him. Has that invitation happened? Has a think tank or something asked you to go head to head with him? What do you make of his energetic activism for the Remain side?
Well, I'm glad there's someone trying to make the case for staying in Canada, because it's one of the things Jeff and I have struggles with, is finding someone who can at least make a cogent argument as to why there's even one reason that it would be in my kids' and grandkids' best interest to do that. But yes, I did receive 2 invitations. I've been negotiating the details over the last month. So I have agreed to 2 public debates with Mr. Kenney, the former premier. One will be at the Civitas conference in early May in Edmonton, and the second one will be a wide open public event put on by the Aristotle Society, Mark Milkey's group, in Calgary. I think there'll be some public announcements coming out. And what I keep coming back to is, each time I ask myself, why am I doing this? Why am I so supportive of independence? It's because by every single measure that I can think of, every practical aspect, every economic viewpoint, social, political, it just makes sense. There's no good reason for Alberta to stay in Canada. It's just baffling to me. It makes no sense. By every measure, Albertans will be better off to move forward through independence. And more Albertans are waking up to that reality.
Yeah, and there's no reason for a lot of provinces to stay in anymore. I know the Fringe was talking today. I was watching the video, and he was saying all provinces need to file for independence. Now, I think the ones that are getting the remittance payments or the welfare program from Alberta, maybe they have a different perspective on it, but Western Canada in general needs to break free, and it's the best way to do it is one province at a time. Alberta will set the framework, Saskatchewan can come behind them, and hopefully we can figure something out for BC, but BC is going to be a tough nut to crack because they're so ideologically captured in Victoria and the city of Vancouver.
Yes, they're insane.
Yeah,
what they are.
And that's where we're originally from. We've now fled the country. It took us 4 years to save the money to do it. We live in Mexico now.
I'm originally from Mexico. I lived in Vancouver for 13 years, and I realized year after year, everything got worse.
Yeah, but it's very heartening to see there's so many like-minded people in Alberta, because before we decided to flee Vancouver, I was talking to people and there was just no like-minded people there. It was a scary thing. It was just a nation of sheeps, but I guess Alberta and Saskatchewan are the standouts where you can actually do something about it, consolidate together, and take Alberta away from Canada.
However, we do see at least the paid-off media already starting to reframe this debate. From Jason Levine says, quote, the Calgary Herald couldn't even say Keith Wilson's name. Instead, they call him a separatist advocate. State media in Alberta knows the deal. Once Alberta is independent, the state funds will end. Then they are in survival mode now. And yes, they posted former Alberta Premier Kenney to take on separatist advocate in 2 debates.
Yeah, and this is where the framework is going to be set. The national government has been real quiet up to this point. These Kenney debates, they're going to try to springboard a complete campaign, my guess is calling Alberta traitors and all kinds of other things, but they're going to use Kenney to set the framework. Luckily, he's going against Keith Wilson, the thought leader of the Alberta independence movement. So hopefully, Keith Wilson does fantastic in that debate, and Jason Kenney isn't able to set that framework. And I really think Kenney's going to try to set the framework around economics so they can throw all kinds of natural resource contracts and pipelines at Alberta to try to stop them and say, oh, we fixed it. You don't need to leave anymore. I hope Keith Wilson really focuses on the cultural issues and the 100 years of treating Alberta like the doormat.
Yeah, the regular issues that you can see day to day and that affect people day to day, and especially the younger people who have right now no opportunities if they stay within Canada because of everything that has been imposed upon them.
Yeah. That's going to be a absolutely fascinating debate because the atmosphere at that time around Alberta independence, the signatures will already be had. The drive for October 19th will be in full swing by that point. When the Bruce Party and Jason Kenney debate kind of went down, it went a little bit under the radar because we're still gathering signatures and the national government's trying to ignore it at all costs. But Jason Kenney, they're going to any good point he makes, you better believe the left and the national media is going to be putting that all over the place. So not just us and content creators that have channels, but people that support Alberta independence. If you have smaller social medias, it's going to be a great opportunity to hopefully clip Keith Wilson on putting Jason Kenney in his place.
But also, from Mark Nixon, quote, President Donald Trump just praised Nick Shirley for exposing massive fraud and corruption in the United States. And now Nick Shirley has his eyes set on Canada. Liberals must be shaking in their pants right now. And yes, he announced that he is now turning his focus towards Canada.
Yeah, and this is very interesting, and I don't know what he's going to be able to find in Canada or how he's going to expose it in the same way. That being said, now's a good time to try to contact Shirley through social media or shows like this or sending emails. We got his contact, so we're going to send him an email and hopefully get him to go to Alberta. If he's already in Canada, let him know what's happening in Alberta. This is an independence movement unlike any other that could really, if corruption is shown, it's only going to motivate Albertans to move further. And I think the big story in Canada is not just the corruption of Canada itself, but that independence movement in Alberta. And if we can get him to cover it and give it to a much broader American audience, that would be absolutely fantastic. This is another one of those things we need to really think outside the box. And this is an opportunity to kind of reach out to an American content creator and hopefully have him shine some light on this before censorship really hits Alberta independence in the summertime.
If you don't know who Nick Shirley is, he's an independent journalist from the US. He has gone all over the place doing interest stories, I would say. So he's gone to say the Secot in El Salvador, where all that prison where they're putting all the gang members. He's also come here to Mexico when there was that immigration crisis and the caravans flowing through. And he's most recently well known. He went the most viral because he exposed massive fraud from the Somali community in Minnesota. And he got a lot of hate because of that. I don't agree with everything he does or says, but I do think it's a good idea, especially if it helps shine a light on the reality of what is happening in Canada.
Yeah, so if you see Nick Shirley in Alberta for any reason, talk to him because he could be a big help to the Alberta independence movement, especially when it comes to rallying Americans around it.
Do you want to see the clip or no?
Oh, yeah, we can see the clip. I didn't realize it was a clip. And there's Savannah Hernandez
right
in the background. I've been watching her for years. She's another really good American content creator. She used to work for Alex Jones. She's now on her own, and she does independent, on-the-ground journalism.
A nursing home business and the daycare centers in particular, they went out and inspected them in Minnesota, and they didn't exist. They're knocking on the door. It happens to be a young man, Nick, just like homes. And they're getting hundreds of thousands of that. They didn't exist. And in California, it's worse. It's even worse. And I just thought...
He was just talking about the fraud cases there in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, that was a major light. He kind of shone on that. And he mainly has been focusing on fraud. But before that, he did special interest stories. And I think Alberta independence could be one of those special interest stories that could really spark something on an international level, because there's a lot of regions in the world right now having their own little independence movements. Scotland's one of them. A lot of these EU countries want to break off from the EU. I'll leave the US kind of out of it for now, but there's talks in the US as well.
But I'll also say he could connect very easily, and I'm sure he has some sort of information or insider information that made him want to go to Canada and look into Canada. I'm sure someone has given him something. Yeah. Otherwise, why would he care so much? But I think he could link the whole corruption thing with this is why people want to leave. So linking those two stories up could actually make it a lot more Interesting.
Well, yeah, that being said, yeah, if he does find something in Canada, and it usually has a lead wherever he kind of goes. So if he uncovers something in Canada, then goes to Alberta and say, this is why they want independence, that would be huge.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going here.
Should I read some comments or no?
Oh, let's do one more story
wait.
and then we'll read some comments.
Jeff Raff says doctors, dentists, lawyers, police, fire, EMS, nurses, teachers, tradespeople, ranchers, farmers, oil field workers, students, and other Albertans of every background and of every ethnicity are all signing the petition. This isn't the independence movement of the 1980s. This is happening.
Yeah, and this is happening on the ground. People are getting interviews after they're signing the petition. So we have those videos, which is good because, you know, the national media in the summertime is going to try to frame this as a white Christian nationalist movement. And that's why all those videos and all those interviews of a diverse group of individuals is going to be important to kind of take down that narrative they're going to want to try to pin on us.
It says, Dear Canada, it's over. We're taking back what's ours. We carried more than our share. You ignored our voice. You spent our wealth without our consent. We're reclaiming our industries, our policies, and our future. We wish you luck. We're done here.
Yeah, and Jeff Rath is doing a good job with his X account, trying to sit different narratives, not just we want natural resource contracts, but we don't want strings attached with anything anymore. We want our natural resources to be free. We want to be free as Albertans. That's why Alberta independence is the way forward.
And stop being taken advantage of in a system that is not going to get fixed because it's not beneficial to those in power within that system. So that's never going to change.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you leave.
Okay, let's go into some comments if we have them.
Harmony says, are you people having the same issue in Mexico that we are having in Canada? Not exactly, but I mean, there's the same kind of globalist plays being tried, like that they're trying to implement. Here it's a bit harder because our systems are a lot more literally and figuratively retarded, but also the government, luckily, even though they've amassed a bunch of power, they're still sharing power with criminal organizations, for example. So it's hard for them to fully pin down, and unless I guess the US would come in and actually do something.
Yeah, you get a lot of freedom through chaos here because there's not that level of organization that the Canadian government has.
They're trying.
There's an alternative economy here and everything else. So the government doesn't have control of a lot of things. Plus, Donald Trump has a lot more influence on Mexico. So even though we have a far left ideological government, they'll say things on the surface, but behind the scenes, they're in complete cooperation with the U.S. because their economy completely relies on the U.S. and they're getting a lot of benefits for that cooperation right now.
And even in that cooperation, our government continues to lie exactly by coming out and saying, no, we're a sovereign nation while they're doing a bunch of backdoor deals so Trump doesn't expose them and doesn't take them out of power and put them in jail. Morris 007 says, thumbs up, folks. See your subs are starting to grow quicker, hopefully. But I mean, we are probably going to take a little bit of a hit because we're going to switch the ways and the means by which we're publishing. So Saturday, Sunday now will only be edited videos, but the rest of the week is lives.
Yeah, so if you can subscribe, it would be a big help, especially as we transition the channel into more live streams and more interviews and a little bit less edited videos. So.
And Rafa, hello Rafa.
Oh, good to see you. And congratulations. And congratulations, Rafa.
Once again, congrats. And thank you so much also for the super thanks. And again, we really do care a lot about you. And thank you for being here. Hope everything is settling in.
He's our oldest and most loyal subscriber. He watches us on both our channels, and he was giving comments when we literally had 0 viewers. And he was like, sometimes some streams he would be the only viewer, and he would leave comments. It really pushed us forward to getting where we're at now.
Yes, and he became a new dad, so
yeah, and I know
very exciting for him.
And I know we used to talk a lot of geopolitics, and now it's all Alberta independence. And even though he doesn't live in Alberta, he continues to watch us. So.
Yes. Thank you so much. Harmony says, it is amazing how many Alberta flags are out there. It feels so wonderful to be an Albertan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was telling you the other day, we need to get an Alberta flag for the set.
Yeah. The Bilver says the canvassers can also come to your house. Yeah, and it's a point that we have been trying to at least highlight during each stream and each time we talk about it, because a lot of people might not know, especially those that are afraid or don't want to go out there or think that their information will be leaked or don't want to be seen signing, because again, we know how the government has reacted in the past. Then yes, canvassers can go to your house.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of Albertans can-do kind of attitude. They're very hardworking, but they're almost working too much, so they don't have time to go out to these petition locations. There's no shame in calling Stay Free Alberta and having them send a petitioner to you. That's what they're there for. That's what we kind of want. We don't care. Like, don't be ashamed to call somebody to come to your house so you can sign this petition. Yeah.
And Steve Safaro says the man in the street interviews will help encourage independence and solidarity and dispels doxing.
Yeah, and John, the Alberta Patriot, is absolutely fantastic at that. So we made a video on him the other day. If you're not subscribed to him as well, he's a great resource for Alberta independence.
Yes. Primors 007 says, agreed. One thing I love about the USA is their flags and pride everywhere. Nice to see this starting in Alberta also. And then quickly corrects US flag, not pride flag, just to be clear.
Well, let's just be clear about this, because in the summertime, they're going to make their push. And I was shocked that Mark Carney was able to take the Canadian flag away from Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, because there was a time it was Conservatives were the one waving the Canadian flag. It was on their trucks. It was during the trucker protest. Liberals were freaking out every time they seen a Canadian flag, and somehow Mark Carney took that symbol, made it this socialist, communist Canadian symbol, and totally flipped what Canadian nationalism is. Do not let that happen to the Alberta flag. It represents freedom on a global scale right now. Alberta independence is going to turn into something like what the truckers' convoy was for international media, I believe.
Well, and Mark Carney turned it into the National Socialist symbol. Just contract those words and understand where we're going with that.
And the Democratic Party in the United States is currently trying to do the same with the American flag. I watch a lot of debates, and what you're seeing now is liberals with American flags behind them. They're trying to take
because they don't want to be called out.
Well, and they know it's a strong symbol for the right, and they want to take that away.
Sam says, I've always had a big blue on the front of my house. Good. Edward says, what did I miss? We almost just started, like half an hour ago.
Yeah. And again, we're probably going to go for fairly long. Most of our shows have been 3 hours up to this point, but starting next week, we're Monday through Friday, 5 to 7. Right after we're done, The Fringe usually starts his show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
And thank you so much to Sam for saying, for the $5 super chat.
Oh, thank you.
Have $5 that used to go to the federal cons.
Thank you for the super chat, by the way. It really does help.
Yeah, it really does help. The Bilber says, in Alberta seems to be loads of blue flags. Good.
Yeah, and it's really good to have those blue flags to say, I'm proud to be an Albertan, because I'm very interested on how the national government's going to try to sit that narrative. If they lean into this traitor thing, I think it could really backfire on them, and it could rally Albertans even further.
Sam says, guys started on fire, but Nat put him out. How did I put you out?
I don't know. You always shine, though.
Sorry. Sam says, Shadow Davis had a great 2-hour interview with Keith Wilson. Check it out. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I'll check that out after. I was busy watching the Nadine interview with Bruce Purdy and another intellectual. It was from 8 days ago, but I hadn't seen it. It was great constitutional conversation they really had.
Sam says, I've redirected my federal conservative donations to Stay Free Alberta. And the people that have noticed and I think will continue to notice, again, yes, for the rest of Canada, the Conservative Party is still like that ray of hope, but you have to start realizing that the way the whole system is structured will never actually let that fully happen. Well,
the national government already tried to build that narrative that it was foreign interference, and a lot of the donations to Stay Free Alberta were coming from foreign locations. Stay Free Alberta has kept good track where a lot of the donations have come from, and they're able to prove it's small $5 and $10 donations coming from Alberta's, much like Bernie Sanders built his campaign. Even though I don't like Bernie Sanders, I will say the fact small donations coming from Albertans is really helping out this movement, and it is a pure grassroots movement, and it's going to be hard to stop.
Yes. And Sam says the Shadow Davis interview is the best so far. So we'll check it out.
Definitely check it out after the show.
Harmony says, click the like button. Thank you so much. And we always keep forgetting to.
Yeah, and if anybody can share on their social media, it really does help get us out, because we are publishing from outside of Canada. It's hard for us to get reach within Alberta sometimes.
Yes.
Okay, and let's go back to the stories, and then we'll go back to some comments.
Let me just say hello to KP for you over at RUMBLE. If YouTube does try to censor any of your comments, you can always go to our RUMBLE channel, Nat and the Guys, same name, and post your comment there, and I'll read it anyways.
Yeah.
KP for you says, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you. And also says, Pierre Poilievre can't save anything, even if he was lucky to get a minority government. Liberals and NDP will stop him on everything.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
And I will say again, our X account is our companion to the show. Every story we talk about will be on there. Starting next week, we have a show 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So our X account will be all Alberta independence. So if you're looking for news or updates on it, that's a good place to go as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Now let's see. Jeff Rathing, Canada hasn't caught on how serious this is yet. All conservative paths lead to independence right now. Yukon Strong says, I agree with Jeff. At minimum, a separatist bloc, Redneck will form in the fallout and not just in Alberta.
Yeah, and it said that the link for the interview was in the comments, but I went to the link and went to his YouTube channel. I couldn't find the interview, but the clip is good, so I can't wait till the interview actually comes out.
If Mark Carney succeeds so that he gets a majority government without an election, the anger in Alberta will be volcanic. We're going to be looking very seriously at starting a credible independence party in Alberta. We don't need Canada. Canada needs us. We think that Canada separated from Alberta. Like, we're not separating from Canada. Canada has already separated from Alberta. But the Alberta independence movement isn't going away. I think that it's looking progressively more and more and more likely that we will win a referendum.
Isn't there a risk that by becoming landlocked, you're actually worse off? Do you have any concerns that a growing independence movement in Alberta could drive some business out of the province? So you talk a bit about the delegations to the U.S. Has any independence activists actually met with Donald Trump?
The attitude of the U.S. administration towards Alberta independence is overwhelmingly enthusiastic.
I think it might be from a while ago, that interview.
Maybe. I was looking for it on his channel. I couldn't find it. That being said, I don't know. It must be pretty recent because he's talking about Mark Carney getting a majority on the 12th. This is what I keep talking about as well. If he gets that majority, I'm going to put a lot of pressure on national conservatives that Alberta independence is the only way to go forward now that Mark Carney has a majority for the next 3 years.
But also, they mentioned the bloc Redneck, but here the bloc Québécois is doing the exact opposite. From Bruce McGonigal, quote, the so-called separatist bloc Québécois just voted in favor of giving the federal government the power to censor what Canadians can say online, or Bill C-9. Earlier today, the bloc voted against strengthening the bail and parole systems to protect victims and communities, Bill C-242.
Okay, so hold up right there. And yeah, this is obviously controlled opposition at this point. A separatist, these are supposed to be separatist parties. No separatist party is going to vote for a censorship bill like this that will undermine any independence movement at its knees. So luckily, all these censorship bills haven't made it all the way through yet. So it's going to be hard to kind of use them against Alberta independence once we're in full swing.
It says it's time to start calling the Bloc Québécois what it is, a liberal proxy party full of skit actors. No credible separatist movement would vote to give the government such powers, especially when they want to separate.
He said the exact same thing I did. I must have read that and it must have gone in my mind before.
Last year, the Bloc Québécois proudly declared they would be pushing for a referendum on Quebec separation. It was all smoke and mirrors for votes, and now they've said that they want to do it until 2030.
Oh, yeah, and I'm glad he brought that point up because I kept talking about on the show. It's going to be interesting how they treat the separatist movement in Quebec versus the independence movement in Alberta, because they were supposed to go at the same time. They promised they were going to do it at the end of 2026 or 2027. Now they're saying 2030. This just shows how they're controlled opposition. They're signing off on censorship bills and everything else. Now that the NDP isn't backing Mark Carney, it seems like these Quebec parties are the way that he's going to make this coalition government. And why don't you go to you for just a moment?
Do you want to watch the video or no?
Oh, there's a video. No,
I mean, it's just them voting.
No, you can keep going. Why don't you read a couple comments? I'm going to use the restroom.
You don't have to say it. Sam says, Quebec can't afford to separate. Alberta can't afford not to. And exactly. And that is why probably the Bloc Québécois just acts like proxy liberals that only use the threat of separation to be able to get more stuff, as it's been for the longest time. Edward says, born and raised, proud Albertan here. Continue to be so once you're independent. Sam says, media stats a couple of days ago showed 4,000 people in Calgary watch CBC. I actually wouldn't doubt that because the people in Alberta are slightly more thinking than the rest of Canada. Republic of Alberta says, Albertans are beyond done with Eastern Canada. And as they should be.
We're really hoping so at this point. I mean, I just look at Canada and the direction they're headed. Every single question or every single thought that comes into my head, they're like, I don't know how they're going to even survive. The fact that Alberta has a chance to get out right now is an absolute miracle. It's a godsend. Literally, the Lord is looking down on you and shining his light with Alberta independence here. If Albertans don't vote for independence, I'm not going to have any sympathy for it at that point.
Harmony says, I spoke to Born Alberta today who was signing the petition, talked to him for quite some time. It's so nice to speak to like-minded people. Yes, and Edward says, Kenny called the TDS mind virus. Not just Kenny, a lot of the Conservative Party and mostly the rest of Canada also caught it.
Well, it's interesting, and I think it kind of backfires on him because Trump is a beloved figure, not only in the United States, but a lot of people like him in Alberta, and they don't have that same hardship towards him. So when Kenny frames things in this TDS manner when it comes to Alberta, it doesn't hit the same way. He's really talking to a national audience. And as long as he keeps talking to a national audience, he's only going to send more Albertans to the polls to vote for independence.
And he'll continue to just reveal himself.
Yeah.
To be just like the Liberals. Moving on.
Yeah, let's keep going with the stories here.
Hold on. There we go. From Western Standard, quote, Calgary forced citizens to sign a DEI pledge just to speak at City Hall.
Yeah, this is absolutely crazy. They're getting people to sign DEI pledges and everything else. I mean, Marty up north works for the Western Standard, so good on Western Standard for making that great hire. But having these DEI pledges, this is just another reason, like, you need to get out of Canada and you need to fix Calgary. Calgary is becoming just as broke as the rest of Canada with the ideology that infects Calgary right now. And I've talked about this on previous episodes. You need to have really harsh immigration policies to define who you want coming into the country, because you don't want Alberta to turn to Canada. We see this happen in the United States all the time. People fleeing blue states are going to red states, and they're bringing their voting habits with them.
Do you want me to read it or no?
Oh, yeah. There's an article. Perfect.
Yes, it was an article. So before Calgarians could address their own council, they had to acknowledge an ideology, and that should alarm every Canadian.
First it was land acknowledgements. Now we're doing DEI and then ESG acknowledgements. This is two steps too far.
Calgarians who signed up to speak to City Council during the blanket upzoning public hearing were forced to also sign a statement on truth and reconciliation, anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The statement reads, do you want me to read the statement?
Okay, yeah.
The statement reads, the purpose of the City of Calgary is to make life better every day. To fully realize our purpose, we are committed to addressing racism and other forms of discrimination within our programs, policies, and services, and eliminating barriers that impact the lives of Indigenous, racialized, and other marginalized people. It is expected that participants will behave respectfully and treat everyone with dignity and respect, to allow for conversations free from bias and prejudice. This is bias and prejudice.
Well, and just let me tell you for a second where this goes. And we have an article coming up on RUMBLE at the end of the show, but now's a good time to bring it up, because the next step to this is what's happening in Brazil right now. They're passing legislation in Brazil in a business setting. If you interrupt a woman or you disagree with a woman in a business setting, it can be criminally prosecuted. And there are similar laws here in Mexico as well, because I was asking you, I said, this story can't be real. And she goes, no, same thing's happening in Mexico I didn't know about. It's these feminist policies that just go even a step further. I can't interrupt a woman, but a woman can interrupt me, and I can't disagree with a woman. Like, disagreement is how you get the best ideas to the top. Brazil's gone off the hinges. Mexico's going in the same direction, but policies like this were the first step.
Mm-hmm. And here in Mexico, I talk about it quite a bit in my Spanish show, which goes on after this, all in Spanish. But here, men are already starting to say, well, I'm not going to address any woman ever. I'm not going to talk to anybody on the street, because now they have the mechanism for them to be able to not just sue me, but put me before a court just for if they felt harassed or offended, if they managed to say that they felt that way.
Yeah.
Which is insane. But Maxime Bernier says, the bigger the government, the less freedom we have. It's time to cut that big fat government by appointing a minister tasked with its reduction. The minister will be responsible for systematically reviewing all programs in order to abolish those with ideological motivations that promote wokeism, those those whose primary goal is to buy votes, as well as obsolete and ineffective programs that no longer serve a clear purpose.
Well, and I've been talking a lot about putting in mechanisms that will self-regulate to cut off fat once you put programs in, so they have to be reviewed and they don't just always continue, so the government doesn't get bigger and bigger. Also, I've already brought it up once on the show, but the interview Nadine did with Professor Party, they talked about everything you want in a constitution to limit the power of government. And really, the power needs to be put in the Constitution, not into officials, because as soon as you put it into officials, you're going to get corruption into the system.
Public sector jobs will also need to be eliminated as a result. And again, 1 in 4 people in Canada allegedly work for the government.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people in Alberta might have hard feelings towards Maxime Bernier because he is from Quebec, but he really takes the hard stance early on, and he is an outright vocal supporter of Alberta independence. So I hope a lot of the people that have been voicing negative opinions of Bernier in the Alberta independence movement realize he is a good figure to have helping us.
From Mike Gertison, well, there you have it. And this goes back into why just pure economics talk about Alberta independence won't help the nationalists win them over. Enbridge CEO Greg Ebel says the federal government's absurd emissions regulations and industrial carbon tax are a big factor in what's holding them back from investing in a pipeline again. Yeah, and this is a CEO kind of laying it out on the table in a nice way. But what's being said here is if Alberta gets its independence, there is going to be so much money flowing into Alberta. The biggest limiting factor is going to be the number of citizens you have, because there's going to be too much work.
All of that is tied up in the MOU and discussions between the Alberta government and the federal government in Canada. And when they come to a solution on emissions issues and industrial carbon tax, CO2 lines, that'll determine whether our producers, my customers, get the green light to produce. If my customers get the green light to produce, Enbridge is the largest mover of oil in North America, is going to be there.
So that's your condition, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. It's remained the same. As you might be aware, we spent $600 million trying to do this before and had the rug pulled out from under us. I think the view has changed these days, but we'll have to see, because my investors aren't going to make an investment on a hope and a prayer. All of that.
Yeah, and I will say this, Jeff Rath talks a lot about this, and we don't want, right now, Danielle Smith negotiating with the federal government to what strings are going to be attached to the natural resources. No, cut all the strings, cut the federal government out of it, vote for Alberta independence, and you will be one of the most prosperous countries in the world.
But also, again, this is what a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada looks like. So continuing down that path and with that plan will just get you to the same exact place you're already in.
Yeah, you have about, if you stick with the federal government and Alberta doesn't get its independence, you have about 10 years left within the natural resource sector before they regulate it out of existence.
And then we have this from Jeff Rath. Saying Joe Rogan Pierre has full-blown AIDS, Alberta independence denial syndrome. It's called door knockers. 2/3 of doors support independence. Zero federal income tax. 33 to 38% take-home pay increase. Why wouldn't you vote for that?
Well, and again, the Albertan government is trying to increase property taxes and things like this. It is a bad idea, and Danielle Smith is touting this as it is a good thing. Like, there should be no property taxes. Once you own your home, you own your home. If you sell it, okay, maybe there's a tax there. I would even say even then there shouldn't be.
Oh, I think Pierre's got a case of full-blown AIDS. It's Alberta independence denial syndrome, right? That won't happen. That won't happen. That won't happen, right? I don't think, he doesn't spend any time in Alberta, right? So he doesn't have any idea the depth of and the strength of the independence movement right now in Alberta. Like, there's over 7,000 door knockers out right now, banging on every door in every constituency in Alberta. And I spoke to one yesterday that was in a little town called Innisfail, and he told me that literally going to the doors, that at a third of the doors, people wouldn't sign because they'd already signed at a pop-up, right? Another third of the doors they signed, so that's 2/3 of the doors, sign the petitions are in favor of independence. And he said literally less than a third, were fervently, Canada do or die, right? So, when Joe Rogan talks about, or Pierre Poilievre talks about Albertans being super patriotic, yeah, all that patriotism is shifting, and they're now Alberta patriots. There's a lot of people in this province that no longer consider themselves Canadian and consider themselves simply.
Okay, you can leave it there. And I think that's why it's that's one good thing about the Liberals have taken the Canadian flag and they're saying they're the nationalist party. People are raising the Albertan flag. This is real freedom, and that's what it's starting to represent. And that 1/3 that he said are nationalists, I don't even believe that. I think that last third, half are maybe nationalists, so 15%. I think the other 15% are immigrants and scared. And they won't sign the petition because they're scared of things that have happened in their country. That being said, that 15% isn't going to vote against Alberta independence. They're just not going to vote.
And I am glad to see more and more people starting to speak up, especially that support Alberta independence, about what Pierre Poilievre says and has continued to say, and is getting closer and closer to Mark Carney, saying, I'm texting him updates from here down in the US right now that he's doing his little tour. And I think that was a hard realization because he was the hope and the Conservative Party was the hope for so long. But it is important to realize, even if they get in, even if they get all the support in the world, it won't change overnight.
Well, again, October 12th, if Mark Carney gets that majority government, Pierre Poilievre officially becomes controlled opposition for the next 3 years. And Alberta independence is the only way forward. And we need to take the gloves off at that point and start going for the win, telling national conservative content creators and national conservatives, Alberta independence is the only way forward for freedom, because Canada will be completely destroyed once Mark Carney's done with it in 3 years.
More than it already is. It's not like it's not destroyed already. And a ridiculous thing that we also saw this week from Ryan Gertison, quote, over a video note spoken in French. Think about that. Could Quebec be more petty? Because the Financial Post says Quebec demands Air Canada's CEO resignation in a 92-0 vote. Criticism comes after his failure to speak French in a video about this week's ending collision at LaGuardia.
This was absolutely ridiculous. Quebec demanding Air Canada CEO speaks French. This is just another reason to vote for independence for Alberta. You don't want to deal with these Frenchies anymore.
But also Carney, I mean, he himself saying that instead of focusing on the actual tragedy, he focused on, the Air Canada CEO doesn't know how to speak French.
Well, because he wants to virtue signal. They want to virtue signal off every tragedy, and that's how they're going to try to frame it. And we can see Quebec is now becoming the coalition with the Liberals right now. And it works even better than the NDP because in everybody's eyes, they're a separatist party. So they would never work with the Liberal government. So when they do, they're doing it reluctantly for their own interests. That's not true. They're working with the Liberal government just like the NDP worked with Trudeau. And there's going to be a couple other articles. Hopefully I put them back to back here. What's the next article? No. Okay, yeah. Mark Carney, with his Liberal office, is supposed to have a French greeting. No French greeting on it, yet he wants to call for the resignation of Air Canada's CEO. I would just say the rest of English-speaking Canada should stand up on social media and let Air Canada know, no, it's okay. You don't need to resign or apologize for this crap.
And eventually, I mean, the official languages will probably expand to Hindi and Mandarin. So might as well start learning those if you don't want to vote for independence, because you'll be called out just the same. From Keith Wilson, quote, Alberta has what the world needs: oil, natural gas, fertilizer, petrochemicals, beef, wheat, canola, lumber, and more. We don't lack resources or expertise. We lack the freedom to develop them, to use them. It's remarkable to me that our province, with this level of potential, is still being held back, forced to wait, to negotiate, and to ask permission when we should be leading the global energy and resource development. Alberta independence frees us from this dysfunctional relationship with Ottawa and allows us to fully realize our economic potential.
And again, I put this on here because you hold all the keys, but when Alberta gets its independence, especially when it comes to negotiating with Canada, you need to play extremely hard ball. I'm talking specifically to BC. BC is going to need access to the rest of Canada. In order to get that access, they need to give access to the coast. Otherwise, no goods pass through Alberta, period. And that's how you get access to the coast. And then the second way you get access to the coast is through long-term contracts while Donald Trump's still in office. So just in case a Democrat gets into office in 2028, you make sure you secure long-term contracts with the U.S. that they can't cancel.
We might see a Newsom, and I don't want to see that. But also from Jeff Rath. Here's an example of what Daniel Smith is so proud of. This is from the Prime Minister of Canada saying Canada and Alberta reach agreement in principle on methane equivalency. The world is changing rapidly. In response, Canada is transforming its economy to be more resilient, competitive, and prepared for a low-carbon future. That in itself is an oxymoron.
Danielle Smith and everybody Danielle Smith and a lot of the government officials have already bought into the framework Carney put out rather than pushing back against it. No to all this. No strings attached. We drill for oil, we make money, and you should just be happy to be getting something from us in taxes.
So a key part of this effort is reducing emissions from the oil and gas sector and ensuring Canadian energy remains a reliable and responsible choice in global markets. By working with provinces and territories, Canada is cutting pollution, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, there's no such thing as clean oil, and the world does not want clean oil. What they want is oil and energy so they can survive, so they can thrive.
So they can maybe eventually move to another source of energy that actually works, which could be nuclear. But to do that, you have to be able to fully develop and produce with the oil you have currently and use what systems you have, not impose and implement green scams that just make that effort even slower and it doesn't push to actually getting to a different source of energy.
And it hinders investments straight up, and it's going to end investments at a certain point. Every year, there's more and more regulations put on in these contracts. So they start low and then they increase year after year until it's not even affordable to have a natural resource sector within Canada. This is why Alberta needs its independence, to cut the umbilical cord and to cut all these regulations.
But also ask the architect of all of this, even from when he was from behind the scenes, Mark Carney, if his Brookfield asset management investments over in the Middle East that produce oil and actually produce quite a bit of oil are doing this carbon neutral ridiculousness. No, they're not. They're actually producing, but he just cares about those, not about Canada.
Well, he's trying to build he's one of the architects behind the scene for the new world economy as the globalists see it. And Western economies aren't allowed to access the natural resources. They're meant to be serfs and to adopt a Chinese style system. Well, Brookfield Asset Management and Mark Carney himself are heavily invested in oil, gas, and natural resource sectors in the global south. So they're fine when the global south does it, just not these Western cultures when they have a new economy set to come in. Sorry, I'm losing my words there.
From Ryan Gertison, quote, me too. Carney in Halifax today. Listen to this nonsense from Carney. Net zero LNG, low carbon oil. The world wants it. No investor is going to touch Canada. And we just saw one of them from Enbridge saying no with ideological rhetoric like this. Wait till the end where you will see Seamus O'Regan fawn all over him.
This is ridiculous the way he frames it, and there's absolutely no pushback here.
One thing, so we've approved and accelerated some big LNG projects in Canada. More will come. The LNG projects that are moving forward are top quartile or top decile, and in some cases net zero LNG. When I say top quartile decile, I mean in terms of emissions. So they're amongst the lowest emission. We're looking to move towards low emission oil with Alberta through pathways and others. So we're embedding that element because it's the right thing to do, but it's also the long-term commercial thing to do because, the world wants low cost, low risk right now. Everyone's thinking about risk, low cost, low carbon energy sources, whether they're conventional or clean. So our strategy with Alberta has been to go right to the heart of the issue, which is the pipeline. But what else comes with the pipeline? Pathways, a carbon market that works in Alberta because there's structural issues.
A carbon market that works. My infrastructure that I've built for this new world economy, all this stuff is BS. The fact that he's framing it as this is what the world wants. No, this is not what the world wants. That's obvious at this point. What the world wants is cheap oil and natural gas and energy.
Ask China, ask India, ask the Middle East, ask Russia if they're using low carbon and that's what they're looking for. No.
Nuclear power, which they're also looking to build out. So having everything on the table, rolling up your sleeves, working on it, that's the way to address it. Showing that the Federation works. And it has the benefit of, it has a huge immediate payoff if we get it right. And we're making good progress with Alberta. There's more to be done, but we're making very good progress.
Prime Minister, my Atlantic Canadian caucus colleagues are sick of hearing me say this, but I would always say we can't afford ideology out our way. You deal with the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. And on that note, I think it's fair to say, and speaking for a lot of people, I think in this crowd, you are definitely one of us, somebody with great ambition and pragmatism and practicality.
I can't even listen
It is
to
great
that
honor to have you here
garbage.
in Halifax for as long as we have. Thank you so much.
And he loves
Oh
it when
my
they fawn over
God.
him.
And it's just, we got to deal with the world as it is. Yeah, that's what Alberta's doing with independence. This is absolutely crazy the way he talks, frames it, and then they just eat it up like it's truth. It's absolute slop.
And it's similar to when he did that speech at, where was it? The WEF? When he made that speech, and every globalist leader in every globalist country and liberal in those countries were as well fawning over him, and that's what he wants.
Well, and the fact that Alberta is willing to go into, like, the way Carney is negotiating with Danielle Smith in Alberta, this is how he expects the U.S. negotiations to go. It's not Donald Trump ain't having it, and he's going to put Canada in its place, because we're not going to go tit for tat. You want to go tit for tat, no problem. North America, free trade agreement gone. What we want are your natural resources. Western Canada has them. If you're not willing to cut a deal, we'll go directly to Alberta and cut the rest of Canada out. It's called hard-nosed power negotiations, and that's what Alberta needs to do. Like, they're not going to do it unless they get their independence.
But also the coordinated ideological push that we continue to see from the ones that think they're the overlords and rulers of the world. You want to liberate yourselves from that as well. Jeff Rath says, Islamophobia, I have to say it that way or YouTube gets mad at me, is a new fake crisis designed to allow governments to jail dissidents with impunity. Welcome to the Gulag Archipelago. Archipelago? I can never say properly. Red Pillbot says the prime ministers of the UK, Canada, and Australia, always those three. I'll read from the exact same script.
We've seen a devastating rise in Islamophobia.
We must stamp out the hate, fear and prejudice that drives Islamophobia and division in our society.
Because of the hatred fueled by ignorance that is still a lived reality for far too many Muslim Canadians.
The surge in Islamophobia is simply appalling.
The targeting of Australians based on their religious beliefs is not only an attack on them, but it's an attack on our core values.
The values of community.
Says the prime minister of the country where there was an attack on another religion by the one he's defending.
Of generosity and, yes, of sacrifice.
Leaving people feeling fearful and unsafe in their own country.
Australians should be able to feel safe and at home in any community.
Our Canada is a diverse country. We can pray differently. We can gather in different places of worship, but all of us come together. All of us must come together around the values of Eid.
I'd like to thank Muslim organisations and mosques who work tirelessly.
In Canada, you can't even pray anymore because they passed Bill C-9.
Well, and the Islamic community, once they take over the country, they're an extremely malleable population if you look at their governments in their own countries. The plan is to flood Muslims into the country and then turn the government into an authoritarian dictatorship under a Chinese-style authoritarian government.
Well, yeah, get them to help with the votes and then...
Citizens and especially multi-generational citizens that are used to freedoms just aren't going to accept that. So they're trying to push them out of the country.
But the fact that they all have this same push for the same type of ideology and discourse, while the exact almost opposite is happening and they're not turning an eye to that, also should tell you a lot, the coordination levels of it. Chris Ryan says, in Finland just convicted a politician of hate speech, a 22-year-old church pamphlet quoting the Bible. For a 22-year-old church pamphlet quoting the Bible, this is exactly what happens when countries adopt Europe-style hate speech laws, just like the UK's Online Safety Act and Sweden's tightened, I can't say that because I don't know how to read that in language, rules that crush dissent. Canada is next, thanks to the Liberals and Bloc ramming through
this
Bill
has
C9.
to do with Bill C9. Bill C9 is coming in. They're trying to censor the Bible. This is the next step after they start setting precedents in a court of law.
They've gutted religious exceptions and supercharged hate speech prosecutions. Your Bible, your pulpit, your opinions, all fair game soon.
Bible verse did you post that caused you to be criminally prosecuted?
It was from the book of Romans, 1st chapter and verses 24 to 27. The Apostle Paul teaches in these verses about the marriage and about the same-sex relationships, and he defines them as sinful and shameful.
And What message were you trying to convey in that?
I wanted to make it clear that if the leadership of the church is supporting the Pride event, it is in contradiction with its basis, the Bible.
And after you posted the Bible verse, you were charged under Finland's War Crimes and Crimes Against Humanity law.
Yes, we...
War crimes and crimes of humanity for quoting the Bible. Welcome to Sweden, Finland, and soon in Canada with Bill C9.
UK.
Yeah. And I've been focusing on Bill C9 and the other aspects and not the religious aspect because censorship bills in Europe are so heavy-handed on hate speech and going after immigration. But when it comes to religion, they're going to really start coming after the Bible, and they're not going to go after the Quran or any of these other holy texts, just the Christian Bible.
Well, because they are the new religion. They want to be the new religion and the new gods. That is ultimately where it leads and where it ends.
Well, and they're burning down independent churches in Canada. Over 200 burned now. Well, they're
and turning a blind eye.
Well, they're funding almost like state-run churches that want to put LGBTQ flags out and will hold the government line on everything.
But now we'll read some of your comments. Harmony says, I am no traitor. I know who I am, and I know what is best for our next and future generations. And sadly, I do not have any grandkiddies, but you're helping a lot by helping the young and those that will eventually have kids to be independent from this
Absolutely.
madness.
And there's a lost generation right now where people just couldn't afford to have kids. They were ideologically indoctrinated into feminism, to go to school, and to all their childbearing years kind of went to waste. And now they're too old and they're waking up to the lie. I mean, Western society really intentionally tried to depopulate itself while flooding itself with mass immigration.
Or they got propagandized into ending the lives of their children that they could have had.
Yeah.
Edward says, I signed the petition next to Peter's drive-in. Good.
Oh, fantastic.
Sam says we should hand out big blue flags to every American at the stampede. Put them together.
Well, and this is something Americans will really get behind. If you remember the truckers' convoy, Americans got behind that. And come the summertime, there's going to be a narrative set by the national Canadian media. But the American independent media and national media are far bigger and can overshadow that and crush them, especially if the American media comes from the top, the independent media from Alberta comes from the bottom. The national Canadian media's narrative will be crushed.
Republic of Alberta, hello, says Albertans are not sending $50 billion annually to Ottawa to get imprisoned for speech, worship, or self-defense. At the current moment, they are. Vote for independence, vote in the referendum, and you're free.
Yeah.
So, Bill Goatee, hello, says, great podcast, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Says Canada has fallen even from a week ago. Exactly. It's every single day a new thing happens and a new stupidity that they do and retardation and just things that you can't even believe that are happening day after day after day.
Well, we do a new show like we were doing it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now we're going to do it 5 days a week because there's just so much information. My jaw drops every day. How far further into dystopiaville Canada goes. And when Mark Carney gets a majority government, I just expect it to rattle off to a state of
snowball.
It's going to become China.
And that's what he wants. He said he wants to do. It's the new world order that he said right in front of Xi Jinping.
Well, and a lot of people say, well, what's wrong with China? Well, if you look at China overall, they got a couple they have a couple sparkling cities. You go to any of the countryside or a lot of the smaller cities, it's not like what it appears in these advertisements. And the way the government treats its citizens, there is no freedom.
Or speak to the real Chinese dissidents that ended up in Canada, like in Vancouver. I spoke to a lot of them, older ones too, that explained what actually got them to and how they had to actually to escape China, and that's why they ended up in Vancouver. The newcomers are all envoys from the CCP.
Yeah.
David Walter Carlson says, share to my Alberta Independence Facebook groups. Thank you. And it really does help when you share because it helps spread us and spread the message out and the show out. We are in Mexico currently, so usually we get spread out to Mexican audiences that don't really.
Well, and again, next week, we're going to do a show Monday through Friday, 5 to 7 p.m. just before the Fringe. And that's our permanent times. I think we're the only Alberta Independent show that's going to be going for 5 days a week. And we're going to do this all the way through for for as long as it takes.
Yes. Old Timer, hello, says, I'm concerned about armed guards in the oil sands and how much our oil sands have been compromised. What's the solution?
Yeah, we've been talking about this a lot because I used to work in oil as well as mining, and it just shocked me that they're bringing CCP security agencies in with CCP military with illegal weapons while you're trying to disarm your own citizens in the country. I mean, on so many levels,
What was the solution?
That's one of the most disturbing stories. And I'm surprised the American media hasn't picked up on that more. Because the American media very often, especially the conservative American media, will use Canada as an example of what you don't want to happen to your country.
Yeah. Canadian Spider-Man, hello, says, funny how they like the flag now again, because they're going towards this plan of National Socialism. Socialism.
Yeah.
So that's why they like it again. And they're doing very similar things here in Mexico as well. With there's two different nationalist movements here. The one that's insane and the one that wants to socialize everything, the current government, and then the ones that are actually patriotic and want to save the country from the insane people.
Well, they were trying to ban the Canadian flag at one point because they thought it was a hate crime to be waving it around. Now, they weren't able to accomplish that, but similar things were happening in the UK and in the US. The only country that was able to actually capture that flag and make it this liberal socialist flag was Mark Carney. And it's crazy how the conservatives let that happen.
Canadian Spider-Man says, Alberta will be free. Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Harmony says,
if I have anything to say about it, it will be.
Harmony says, I knew in 1954 at age 6 and 1.5 years old that this was not the way to teach or learn.
Yeah.
David Walters said...
Well, and yeah, Nadine with Bruce Party, again, she was the first one to bring up the topic other than me. I had been bringing this up for a long time. But having shooting courses in school and normalizing weapons safety, and having a completely different mentality than the rest of Canada and even the U.S. The U.S. Does protect firearms rights. The thing is, it's going more and more in the wrong direction every year. They used to have shooting classes in schools in the U.S., and those are taken out now.
David Walters says, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the United States would recognize Alberta as an independent state/nation, not just the United States now, because the Shield of the Americas, a little meeting they had with a lot of like-minded countries in Latin America, would also immediately almost recognize it, and other countries that are sympathetic as well. I would guess a bunch of the eastern ones in Europe.
Yeah, almost all Central and South America, other than Brazil and Mexico, now are right-wing or going right-wing, and they're part of the Shield of the Americas. There's major operations going on in a lot of countries here and in South America, and Donald Trump is really cleaning it up. But all those countries, they're in alignment, and if the U.S. recognizes Alberta, you're going to have dozens of countries recognize it at once, so that shuts down a lot of Mark Carney's options when it comes to trying not to negotiate.
Again, don't put anything past him, though. Sam says, our provincial police force is moving ahead based on Alberta sheriffs. About time.
Yeah, we talked about that, I think, last week, and it's good to see. A lot of the moves that need to be made to expedite negotiations when they come down, Danielle Smith is putting into action right now, so...
Primorse 007 says, hey guy, I'm going to use the bathroom too. LOL. Nat gets so annoyed, so keep saying it. I even have a book here.
Well, I don't know if I'm nervous, but I'm not good on camera still, and I tend to drink. It's a nervous habit, so I have to use the bathroom a lot during the show.
Well, you drink, what is that, apple juice?
Apple juice and then
so people don't think you're drinking.
Oh no, I have an apple juice with carbonated water.
Yeah.
And then usually a tea.
Because we're both sober, actually.
Yeah. You've been sober for 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years now.
Yeah.
I think it's an important message to push as well.
Yeah.
Ruckin Round says, hey, Natting the guy, lots of speaking town halls this week happening in Alberta. And whenever they start popping up and we look into it and find out about it, we'll also try to push those.
Yeah, we usually talk about that in the beginning of the show, and they're filling up. And this is a absolutely fantastic sign. And there needs to continue to be town halls even after the petition is kind of submitted here. It's great to see. This is a real grassroots movement, because usually after a month of town halls, movements would wane. It's not wane. They're only picking up even more.
Thank you for all the compliments. Harmony Valance says, I love Nat. She's a beautiful woman of light and love. Maybe others don't have that comprehension. Thank you. Sam says, Calgary's previous DEI hire is under RCMP investigation right now. They seized her cell phone, contact the previous mayor. Yeah, we talked about that
last episode.
Wednesday, yeah. Hold on. And Sam, thank you so much.
In one moment, I'll read that comment again so people know what we're talking about.
Okay. Calgary's previous DEI hire is under RCMP investigation right now. They seized her cell phone. It's contact the previous mayor.
Yeah, and I know this is a great thing and everybody's pitching it as a great thing. I'm going to just have one word of caution when it comes to this because it is a good thing, but they're going to go after the NDP and more liberal people first. So they have covered to go heavy-handed after people involved with Alberta independence and conservatives within Alberta that are aligning with Alberta independence. Because there's a couple now that have actually come out in favor of Alberta independence, surprisingly.
And Sam, thank you so much, says Nat is an honorary Alberta lady. Thank you. Trying. Eventually we'll try.
And let's go to your camera real quick.
Okay. There he goes. Ruck in Round, I think, says the world is not what it used to be. Alberta independence is the only hope to recreate the basic common sense principles. Again, because they have been legislated and legalized into Canada and the Canadian governmental system. It's the system itself. As I say, the same here in Mexico. It's the system itself that has become both so corrupt, but in Canada also has, since its inception, not given provinces equal say, and it's been unequal from the beginning. That is why Alberta independence gives you that opportunity and that chance to actually make things right and, in a way, just keep the things that actually did work while dismissing everything that didn't.
Well,
because you already know what didn't. You're seeing it in Canada.
Well, I'm not even saying take the things that did work. You need to create a system. Bruce Party talked a lot.
No, but I mean like the basic first principles that a lot of people used to have that they got rid of. A lot of countries used to have. A lot of the like free speech, etc.
Part of the issue as well. You need to have a coherent constitution that's not going to build up corruption over time with overregulation and things like this. Everything is going to really depend on the constitution that you made. There's a lot of good thought leaders putting a lot of thought into this right now, which is good to see.
Hold on. There we go. Sam says, save Alberta, Canada is gone. And I think more people have to start realizing that if they want to also save themselves.
National conservatives need to realize this. And I think they're not going to realize it until Mark Carney gets a majority government. And if they're not willing to realize it then, they're just controlled opposition themselves.
When Alberta that's what the Bilber says, I'm guessing gets its independence. Rook and Round says, Alberta, where have you been so long?
Okay, let's get back into some stories here. Let's get into national Canada as it's related to Alberta independence.
Yes, more reasons for Albertans to separate faster. Go sign. And we put chapter markers because we got used to it from our geopolitics show. And I do, in the comments after the show is over, put the chapter marker so you can skip the introduction, for example.
Yeah, and most of the national Canada stories we talk as it's related to Alberta.
Yeah, it's basically just reasons to leave. Maybe I should name it that instead of Canada.
No, just leave it as.
I know. From Chris Ryan.
But we could call it China, but.
Yeah. From Chris Ryan, quote, I am disgusted and ashamed of every single MP who voted for this. Bill C-9 just passed 186 to 137. You have killed free speech in Canada and will now criminalize the very thing that made this country free and great. The Bible, traditional Christian belief, open debate. You didn't combat hate. You enshrined it in law.
Well, she didn't drink for a day and she really had a good statement here.
History will judge you. Canadians will remember at the ballot box. No, they won't. We've seen that already.
But Bill C-9 not only doesn't solve problems of hate crimes, it not only doesn't give law enforcement new tools, it will create a morass. I'm absolutely certain that if this law is passed as is, it will waste police resources, waste court time, and tie people up in knots in wrongful prosecutions for things that were never hate crimes at all. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I vote against this bill.
And that was a good statement. And I will tell a little bit a story about the UK because we used to cover international politics so heavy. So when a lot of these hate speech laws came into the UK, what happened was everybody started calling the hotline and reporting hate speech on everybody else to overwhelm the system. And eventually the government had to take back these broad hate speech laws. They still have a ton of them and it's way out of hand, but they weren't able to enforce them because everybody just started calling the hotline for ridiculous things intentionally.
Yeah. Maybe an idea. From Ryan Gertison, quote, the CBC has nothing better to do than to promote the resignation of the Air Canada CEO, virtue signal. State-funded media is trying to keep people distracted from liberal incompetence. Who cares about over 150,000 fake students who were never investigated? Let's care about how a guy never spoke French.
Well, no, take your headphones off for a minute. I want to talk about this. And this is a real opportunity for Alberta because a lot of the oil that comes out of the ground comes from Alberta. You have the refining facilities in Alberta. You have 5 refining facilities. Each one's for a different kind of oil. I believe you already have a refining facility for jet fuel. A big idea would be very, very limited tax to no tax on jet fuel. What this would create once you become your own independent nation, it would become one of the big hubs for North America. All the airlines would route their jets through Alberta to pay for so they could fill up on low cost fuel. And then there would be a big benefit towards tourism because so many planes are coming in. They want to fill those planes up with passengers. So they give lower cost tickets. So another thing for Alberta to kind of think about when it comes to oil, maybe putting very low taxes on jet fuel to increase the amount of air traffic that's coming through Calgary and Edmonton.
Use every retardation from Canada to your advantage. It's very easy.
Well, and again, this is ridiculous. He shouldn't have to apologize for any of this. Alberta needs to resign from Canada.
468 words, 2 were in French. 1 at the start, 1 at the end.
Hello, bonjour, thank you. Merci.
Is that enough French for the CEO of Air
Canada? I thought that was more than enough.
That's too much
because
French.
This was getting a lot of media attention, and I didn't think he said anything. And then I watched this, and I was like, oh, he said hello and goodbye in French. He doesn't even speak French. That's a good faith effort to me.
Canada, addressing a nation.
Today is a very somber day at Air Canada.
After a devastating plane crash in New York.
I'm very disappointed, as others are.
In Quebec, it's in French.
And this is so serious that there have been more than 500 official complaints lodged, and the head of Air Canada, Michael Rousseau, has been summoned to testify on Parliament Hill about this lack of French.
After 5 years, he didn't care to learn.
Honestly, it just seems like they want to renationalize Air Canada.
Well,
that seems to be the actual ploy, the actual plan.
And it's hate speech to complain about French in Canada. Otherwise, you would have had tens of thousands of complaints about having to speak French in Canada.
He also had subtitles in French underneath.
Enough French too, at a moment so important that people would have expected him to speak in their language.
So aside from bonjour and merci, Rousseau's entire video message about the LaGuardia plane crash, which killed both pilots, one of them a French-speaking Quebecer, it was all in English, subtitled.
We know this is a difficult day for everyone.
But Rousseau doesn't really speak French. That's a problem for 2 reasons. 1, Air Canada is legally obligated to communicate in both of Canada's official languages.
I think that Air Canada...
And they do. The announcements take forever.
Well, and he did. He said hello, goodbye, and there were subtitles. Like, what more do you want?
There is a private company, but not like any other ones.
Companies like Air Canada particularly have a responsibility to always communicate
And pause it.
in both official
They
languages.
want to nationalize it again.
Mark Carney canceled one of the French debates because he didn't speak good French at the time. And nobody got on him. He got elected for freaking prime minister.
Elected.
Which is regardless of the situation.
But the other problem is that this has been a problem for so long.
Comment fait-on pour vivre à Montréal pendant plus de 14 ans et parler un français qui est très approximatif?
Yeah, it's been a problem for so long that you forced French on the rest of Canada when nobody cares about it.
Okay, backstory time.
If you're asking me about my French.
In 2021, when Michael Rousseau was new to the job, he didn't speak much French then either. So that reporter's question, comment fait-on pour vivre à Montréal pendant plus de 14 ans et parler un français qui est très approximatif? How does one manage to live in Montreal for more than 14 years and speak such broken French? His answer then...
Can you redo that in English?
Wasn't good enough then, and clearly, critics say not good enough now. Quebec's premier says Rousseau should resign for not speaking French. Air Canada says he wouldn't have been able to communicate such a sensitive message in French. That's why he spoke in English. What do you think?
Yeah, I think CTV and the mainstream media is ridiculous. I think French needs to be abolished. The best way to do it is Alberta independence.
English only. Again, I have this crazy notion that they might be trying to take over Air Canada.
Well, yeah, they
Maybe.
want to monopolize everything within Canada. That's why
They
they
wanna
want
make it a
to
national
devastate
industry.
the economy and then have the government start taking over these businesses. 4 government grocery stores supposed to open in Toronto. That's like...
Because this debate and discussion and this anger and outrage is too ridiculous for there not to be something else behind it. And the calls to resignation now make me think even further that the government wants to control Air Canada because it might be one of the few industries, and it's not even doing that well, that is doing kind of okay in Canada.
Well, it's kind of ridiculous to me. There's not more pushback against the government demanding people speak French.
For the longest time. Again, it's going to turn into Mandarin and Hindi as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one official language, when you have Alberta, that creates one cohesive identity.
That too. From Mark Nixon, quote, Mark Carney's army propaganda video just released.
Okay. Finish reading it, sorry.
The Liberals will be filling our military, foreign, non-Canadian militants with fast-tracking citizenship.
Okay, there was something very concerning in the middle of this video, and I have nothing against Ukrainian citizens. I do have a lot against the Ukrainian government because they're extremely corrupt. A lot of the billions of dollars they're actually getting are filling their pockets and other politicians' pockets in the EU. The EU is trying to use Ukraine to start World War III. They want to wait Trump out so then they can, and to keep the war going so they can push World War III. In the middle of this propaganda video, there's a flag. It's half Canadian, half Ukrainian.
But we just made a video that Canada wants to be part of the EU.
The number one country that has donated to Ukraine is Canada per capita, and it has the largest unprotected border in the world with Russia. And it's very concerning because the amount of coverage I have given to the Ukraine-Russia war and how the EU really wants to push that as their parachute project, meaning if they can invade Russia, take it over, there's $74 trillion worth of natural resources, and that would put Europe on the top of the world again. That has always kind of been their plan. The problem was Russia was a little bit stronger than I think they thought. Number one, I think their backup plan, and we talked about this in our video about the EU and Canada, is if they can't invade Russia, they have another country that has natural resources and a globalist is running it. That's Mark Carney. And that's why Mark Carney doesn't want to access the natural resources. He wants to unite Canada with the EU and then access natural resources and distribute it amongst the globalists, not Canadians and not Canadian provinces.
And everything he's doing seems to point in that direction. But from the National Post, quote, this BC woman was offered MAID because before other treatments, she said no to death and went on to climb a volcano.
And we profiled her and we showed a video of her the other day, but this is what more content creators, I hope, start doing, is profiling stories like this that spit in the face of the MAID program and show the benefits of not having MAID and why they're offering MAID to every single person that walks into these medical facilities. It's because they want to save money and they want to harvest their organs.
And luckily, we are also seeing this at least online push, and I'm seeing it a lot here in Mexico, but I hope elsewhere too, in the US too, about that Spanish girl that also got essentially MAID because she suffered a traumatic incident. She got raped by a bunch of kids, and then she tried to do it herself, and then got paralyzed, got depressed, and then the solution was to end her life.
Well, no, the more concise story is, because I've been reading more into it, is she signed up for the MAID program. They pre-sold all of her organs, and then she wanted to get out of it. The lawyer wasn't able to stop it because the organs were already pre-sold, and she was forced into MAID. It's one of the most ridiculous MAID stories that has happened on an international level. More coverage needs to be given to this. The stories that really highlight the mishaps of MAID or the success stories of not getting MAID should be highlighted more and more.
Yeah, but today in my Spanish show, I'm actually using Canada as an example to show stats and how it's the 5th leading cause of death in Canada now and where it has headed. To the point where now, instead of offering treatment, it's way cheaper and way more beneficial and way more It gives them more money to offer MAID to people instead of curing them.
Well, and the national narrative now in Alberta, because Alberta is starting to push back and limit what you can get MAID for. Good on Alberta. They need to get rid of the program once they get their independence. That being said, the national media is framing it as Alberta wants their citizens to suffer because they're limiting MAID, which is ridiculous.
From Mario Zelaya, breaking, Carney gets caught red-handed this morning. My spruce called Carney's Nepean constituency office. It was all in English, no French, not bilingual. This is the same PM who said Air Canada CEO English-only condolence video showed a lack of judgment and compassion.
Yeah, and this is that virtue signaling the Liberals love to do, but they do the exact same thing they're trying to virtue signal against. They just think nobody's going to notice. People did catch him on this. I'm glad they did. I hope somebody questions him about this.
Do you want to read play the first or the second video?
We can play the second video.
I think it's when.
Oh wait, play the first one first and then the second one.
Okay.
Live, as I just said, in a bilingual country. We proudly live in a bilingual country.
Go ahead.
And companies like Air Canada particularly have a responsibility to always communicate in both official languages, regardless of the situation. I'm very disappointed in, as others are, right? So, this.
When they do ask him about why he didn't have French on his answering machine, they need to ask him, are you disappointed in yourself because you didn't have French and you didn't follow the policies?
Unilingual message of the CEO of Air Canada. It doesn't matter the circumstance, but particularly in these circumstances, lack of judgment and lack of compassion.
This is where things start to get really good and really embarrassing for Mark Carney. He said that there's a lack of compassion because the message was not unilingual, and we are living in a bilingual country. Well, the funny thing is, a whistleblower just actually messaged me, and they said, Mario, I got a recording. I called the constituency office of Mark Carney, and it's all in English. Don't take my word for it. Here's the recording, and I'm the only person that has it. Watch this.
Thank you for calling the constituency office of the Right Honourable Mark Carney, Member of Parliament for Nepean. Our office is open from Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We are only able to assist residents living in the riding of Nepean. Please stay on the
All
line,
English.
and a member of our team will be happy to assist you.
Now, I just called the constituency office and I did my own recording, and I used the iPhone's own recording system. So it says, hey, this call is going to be recorded. So I wasn't able to capture the full initial call where it's English, then it switches to French. But check this out.
Description du très honorable Mark Carney, député de Nepean. Our office is open from Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Notre bureau est ouvert du lundi au
Okay, and you can leave it
Our
there.
Prime Minister-
Yeah, and they switched it up as soon as he makes that statement, which is an craziness.
Like, it's just obvious. And again, the virtue signaling of it is the annoying bit, but also the worrying bit is what's the play behind it, because it's too ridiculous to actually just be that.
Well, there's going to be more plays behind it because we see the new alliance that is forming temporarily until Mark Carney gets his majority government, and that's between these Quebec parties and the Liberals.
Now I'll read some of your comments, otherwise they'll stack up. Sam says, under a Laurentian rock. I'm not sure what comment came before that one, but...
Quebec and Ottawa are the rocks around Canada's neck that are just dragging it down, especially Western Canada.
Harmony says, I think Nat and the guy are two of my two adopted children. Thank you. I mean, we're husband and wife, so that's kind of weird, but
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
fun. People say we do
That's
look
really
a lot,
cute.
a lot alike.
Not related at all. Raccoon says, hey, Nat and the guy, what do you think about Keith Wilson as the leader of the Republic of Alberta?
Sorry. Yeah, I already know the rest of the question. Absolutely, Keith Wilson needs to be not only the new leader or president of Alberta when it gets its independence. I know he doesn't want to be, but that's why he needs to be even more. He's the most trustable figure there. He's extremely knowledgeable, and he knows how to present himself appropriately. That's why he's the right person for the debate. But the reason I got all excited was because John Bolton was talking about Alberta independence coming into the summer when there's going to be a national narrative started. We need a face to the movement. And to this point, we haven't had one, and it has worked. But coming up, we're going to need one. And I think he needs to be that face. So that being Keith Wilson. Keith Wilson needs to be the face of the movement. There should be a coordinated effort to kind of go to him and ask him to be that face. I know John Bolton has said it. There's been 2 other content creators. I'm saying it now. Keith Wilson needs to be the face of the movement because
he is having those debates soon.
Well, yeah, but it is so decentralized amongst content creators and other people. Sometimes a content creator or somebody's going to come up and say, "Oh, we need to be the 51st state" or something kind of outlandish. If Keith Wilson's the face and the leader, he can say, "No, we don't want to be the 51st state. We want to be our own independent nation, and this is why." And because if you have independent content creators kind of spouting off, the national media is going to try to frame it as that is the movement itself. But if there's one leader, he can kind of set the narrative.
And I am really against career politicians and those that are just there to grasp for power. And I do like that Keith Wilson always says, "No, I don't want to." Like he doesn't want the power, and I think that makes someone a better leader than someone that's just looking to continue grasping for power.
Yeah, and he has no previous statements that are like skeletons in the closet.
Up to now.
Up to now. He's perfect to be the face of the movement right now. There's other people in leadership positions that have a few skeletons and they come up on social media, but when the real national campaign starts in the summertime, I think Keith Wilson is that figure we need.
Harmony says, "I was not born in Alberta, but moved here in 1973. Ghost says, "Good move." And Harmony says, "I've lived in Quebec, Ontario, and Northern Ontario, but Alberta is my home."
Fantastic to hear.
As it should be. Sam says, "Born in the Hat and now proud Calgarian."
Oh, right on. But I will say maybe Calgary's the worst of Alberta right now when it comes to ideology. It's really becoming infested. So hopefully we can change that once Alberta gets its independence.
Well, having to read that DEI statement just to talk at City Hall was insane.
Yeah.
Harmony also says, "I do not live in fear, but in light and love, strong sense of internal essence." as you should. Sam says, "If you've chosen Alberta, you are most welcome as long as you left the horror behind." And I think that's also important because you don't want to become the red states in the US that ended up with a bunch of blue state imports and then they started changing things.
Absolutely.
So be careful with your immigration policies as well when you're building the nation.
Yeah.
Harmony says, "I love when the young people have an aligned mind and a connection to their body and essence."
Yeah, it's funny. I'll bring us something kind of off topic, but she's talking about energy and stuff like that. I listen to a lot of like UFOs.
Okay, you're going by yourself.
Werewolf stories before I go to bed, stuff like that. But Alberta is one of the energy centers of the world because all the ley lines intersect in Alberta. And it was very interesting to me when I was researching energy patterns, how many intersected within Alberta. There's very few places in the world like that.
And then he listens to those podcasts at night about werewolves and scary things. Then I come into the room at around 3 a.m. after I'm editing and he screams and yells because he thinks I'm a ghost. But so I don't like it when he goes into these crazy conspiracy theories.
I watch so much news and stuff. I need something to decompress that's completely the opposite.
What I watch to decompress and when I'm editing is usually like review videos of traveling or people that go to like theme parks or cruises. That's what or cooking shows. Yeah. That's what kind of helps me not be on the news all day. Canadian Spider-Man says, "Can't blame them for not wanting to invest in Canada." Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it's their own damn fault. And Alberta can get away from that and actually start accepting common sense investment.
Alberta's not the only place with natural resources in Canada. So it's going to be very interesting when Alberta gets its independence and so much money floods in because they're going to deregulate. So many contracts flood in. The rest of Canada that have natural resources, such as BC, people are going to be questioning the BC government at that point.
Why aren't we doing anything?
Why aren't we doing the same thing? Our economy is failing now. What they're going to try to do is blame everything on Alberta because they don't have access to the rest of Canada when they have access to a coastline and unlimited natural resources in BC as well. So it's going to be a very interesting compare and contrast once Alberta does get its independence and completely deregulates.
It's going to be a great compare and contrast. KP4U on Rumble says, "It doesn't matter who wins the Canadian election. The West will never matter because the population is in the East. I've said this for 30 years now. The only way the West will ever prosper is to split up." And as both Jeff Rath and Keith Wilson have said, Canada might just be too big of a country to govern, especially now with the population levels and with the difference in an increase in certain provinces, etc., of population levels and of ideology.
Well, and I'm glad where Alberta independence did wind up. We did a video before talking about the other kind of independence movements that led up to the current Alberta independence, whether it was Wexit, multiple provinces would separate together, or Diagolon, certain provinces would join the United States, but now that it's Alberta independence wants to be its own independent nation and it is building that framework, I think it is the best way forward, because then Saskatchewan can go after, BC can go after, they all have enough natural resources to stand on their own 2 feet, and if one fails, it doesn't take the rest down with them. The movement's not too big to really move forward. It can really connect the dots at every single stage. So Alberta independence, especially when I'm looking into other independence movements in recent history, is the strongest I've seen and has an amazing chance. Just by the polling alone, every other independence movement has succeeded that has had this high polling.
And KP4U says French will not be the official language of an independent Alberta. We literally waste billions of dollars each year in labeling and such.
Well, French won't even be recognized within the province or the new nation once it's formed, I hope. Like if somebody comes speaking French, you better get your cell phone out and have that translate to English.
You do need to learn Spanish, though. He still hasn't learned Spanish. And we live in Mexico. From Peter St. Ong, quote, Congress is trying to sneak a CBDC into their must-pass housing bill. It would replace the US dollar with a government-controlled crypto token that 80% of voters reject.
Yeah, and I didn't like to see this. And this is a warning for Albertans that something like this could very easily happen where they want to slip this stuff into other bills. The framework for all Canada CBDCs are already laid out. They already had everything coordinated 5 years ago. They're just waiting for release. They're going to probably want to do it when there's an economic catastrophe. So learning what happens here and how the U.S. is trying to do it is something to watch out for. And another reason Alberta needs its independence.
Republicans in Congress are pushing a central bank digital currency once again disguised as a ban so they can surveil and control every dollar you spend. Will it be the Republicans who make you eat the bugs? Republicans in Congress are currently pushing a housing bill that does some useful things to red tape zoning and mortgage rates, while doing some shady things. This is Congress, remember? Like letting banks print money they don't have and handing free money to people with bad credit, which didn't work in 2008. But hidden deep in the bowels is a little gem that effectively greenlights a central bank digital currency, CBDC, so long as Wall Street gets a piece of the action. So a CBDC is a kind of government-run crypto token that would replace the dollar with a centralized database that lets bureaucrats see and report every dollar you spend, and lets them block anything they don't like. It's a stablecoin, but a government stablecoin. Now, this already happens in the banking system. Banks send the government transaction reports anytime you move 10 grand, and so-called suspicious activity reports if you do anything weird, both in blatant violation of the Fourth Amendment, requiring probable cause for government spying. Meanwhile, banks can and do control your money. Remember the Canadian trucker protest that forced banks to freeze protesters' accounts using powers we also have thanks to the Patriot Act. The difference is a CBDC does this to all of your dollars, not just your bank account. There is no escape unless you're paying the mortgage and groceries in gold or perhaps Bitcoin. China naturally is the world leader in CBDCs. It's bragged about the fact it can freeze any spending. It even allows negative interest rates where your money literally loses 8% a month unless you spend it, which is handy to force more spending in time for the next election. Aside from China, another 71 countries are building CBDCs or running pilots. Now, the Federal Reserve was running a pilot, but Trump ended that with an executive order as soon as he took office. Enter the housing bill, which already turned into a vehicle to cripple private stablecoins. I talked about that yesterday. But it also adds a CBDC ban that actually promotes the CBDC. The reason is there's two kinds of CBDCs. A retail CBDC, where the Fed issues tokens to the public, meaning you replace your bank with a bank account at the Fed, and a wholesale CBDC, where the Fed issues tokens only to banks. The housing bill only bans the retail CBDC. It allows wholesale. This is a problem because retail terrifies Wall Street because millions of people would pull out their money and park it at the Fed, because there's zero risk at the Fed. It cannot go bust. It is a giant counterfeiting machine. Wholesale, on the other hand, deals banks in.
They can
keep fleecing you.
And that was fantastic in-depth analysis he gave there. And it's just a warning that CBDCs are coming and they need to be stopped. This is one big reason Alberta needs its independence. And when it goes to having its own currency, it needs to be a gold-backed currency.
And
that is that you can't print, meaning one for one, $1 of gold for every $1 printed.
And we're actually seeing, even here in Mexico, they're trying to start with digitalizing, for now, payments at the gas pump and at toll booths, but they want to expand that out. And who was at that conference where they were talking about that? Justin Trudeau.
Oh, and somebody was asking about other countries adopting the Canadian dollar, and if I had researched it. I did research it today, and I couldn't find anything about it. And I spent about 30 minutes trying to look for an article, something about it. I even used AI to see if it knew anything. No other country, AI literally said no other countries are using Canadian currency. The only thing I could think of, but I couldn't find an article on that either, is the global south and the BRICS countries that are dealing with China are closing out major grain deals or natural resource deals in their own currencies. So potentially that was the only thing I could potentially think of.
I think they spoke about it on another podcast, and I have the name bookmarked, so I can tell you maybe to go see that one.
Yeah, because I was looking at it and everything said exactly the opposite. There's no country is using Canadian dollars, and Canada is a weak dollar, so...
But now from Drea Humphrey says, quote, no, and she's from Rebel News, quote, no, weed isn't a safe drug. I've been saying this for years, especially not for teens and young adults. The annual incidence of psychotic disorders jumped by 60% among 14 to 20-year-olds between 1997 and 2023, according to a 30-year study. And this, I'm glad, has been getting a lot more talk.
And weed is very strong these days. It's grown in industrial grow-ops. I actually helped build some of the first industrial grow-ops within British Columbia. We converted old pepper farms into greenhouses. It didn't work out so well for the government there, but because everything started to mold, and then they had to build them again from the ground up. That being said, it's a completely different kind of strength. And when it's this strong, a lot of people are having psychological issues.
Mm-hmm. It could trigger, for people that have underlying or could have underlying, not symptoms, but indications for schizophrenia, it could trigger that and then become a full blown out, endless schizophrenia.
Yeah, well, I had a friend that this happened to, so it's a pretty personalized story to me. Now, it's not going to happen to everybody, and I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying with the strength of weed that is today, and with people wanting stronger and stronger weed, it got worse and worse as the individual that I knew started using government-approved weed grown in government labs because it was so much stronger than regular weed he was getting before.
And also tainted stuff as well with different chemicals.
I don't think it's getting
but for the young
tainted.
people, yes.
Okay.
But if you want to listen to a pretty compelling story and someone that speaks about this pretty open and honestly, I would say I don't agree with her on everything, but Brett Cooper's brother actually went through this specific thing, and he now has full-blown schizophrenia. He lives in an institution, and I'm a big sober advocate, being sober myself, but I do think, especially in Canada, with weed being so ubiquitous and being legalized and etc., and many other countries legalizing it as well, they're trying to move away from the actual reality of what it can do to the human being.
It's oversold as safe, and I think there are medical purposes for it, especially in pill form and other things. But it needs to be studied, and it shouldn't be sold as it's the safest thing ever because people are getting schizophrenia. I mean, if I've personally known somebody that's happened to, it has to be happening quite a bit.
And at least studying it further or talking about it further, but it's like they want to not have the conversation.
When the government gets involved in it and it's a big money business now, they're going to sell it as the safest thing in the world and ignore the side effects of it. Pretty soon, I'm sure Canada's going to go into all kind of manufacturing of other drugs, especially in the fiscal state that it's in.
Michelle Phillips says, our tax dollars are now paying all expenses for foreigners to come to Canada to get a certificate. Canadian students pay their full expenses or get student loans, yet these invaders get to come here and live off of our tax dollars. Why? This government is doing everything in their power to replace the Canadian population with foreigners. And this is...
Well, and you have a real opportunity within Alberta with the amount of natural resource money you're going to have coming in for young people to possibly get a free secondary education and to have that secondary education whether it be a Red Seal job or in academia, but teach real subjects and real things that matter that people are going to use in the real world, and really show the world how it's done when it comes to education and what you teach your young people and people going into college. Getting rid of all the woke classes and bullshit that doesn't really matter or have a real career attached to it.
I studied in Canada. I didn't get this offer. I paid full and even international student tuition, which is insane that now they're having full tuition fees covered for eligible
and they're
programs.
advertising it in India
Economy class round trip airfare, so they're literally paying for people to come over. And again, yes, they're expanding, especially specifically the India scholarships that they're giving out, while they're actually removing a lot of scholarships for Canadian students and switching the way that even getting money works from the government, because now they're indebted to the government when before it did used to be a scholarship.
Well, at least show the educational videos of them getting these scholarships, then getting into school, and then going directly into the government job pipeline. Why? Because so many immigrants were getting their degrees and then fleeing for the U.S. Every Indian I know, their goal was to get to the U.S., but the easiest way in was through Canada and a Canadian degree. So the reason they want to put them into government jobs is so they'll stay within the country.
From Bruce McGonigal.
And one more thing. 1 out of 4 people in Canada work for the freaking government, which is crazy.
I could really go into that, but I'll leave it for another show. Bruce McGonigal says, next week we'll be here every day, so maybe I can expand more upon my ideas. Bruce McGonigal,
but only 2 hours every day.
Yes. Bruce McGonigal says, Liberal MP Anthony Housefather lists off numerous serious crimes in Canada that are not being punished as the reason why Canada needs online censorship Bill C9.
And this was absolutely crazy. And yeah.
I'll let him say it so maybe YouTube doesn't get mad at me.
They're going to get mad because he keeps saying the J word in here.
Oh, great. Whatever.
I've been asking for this bill for 2 years. This is a bill that I feel passionately about, and this is a bill that is desperately needed. In the last month, 3 synagogues in Toronto were shot at. Jewish institutions were shot at.
And I don't know how synagogues or mosques or churches getting burned or shot at has anything to do with a censorship bill, which is, that's not going to stop it. You already have laws on the books to go after arsonists and shooters, yet you choose not to use it. And when you do use it, you give extremely light sentencing for it. He's calling for censorship bills that have nothing to do with censorship.
In Belgium, in Holland, a synagogue in Detroit was attacked with a car, with a guy who was armed, ramming in to the gate. And over and over and over in this world, we've seen acts of hate directed at many communities, but in particular right now, the Jewish community. In the last year, Jews were killed in Washington, D.C. because they were Jewish. They were killed in Colorado because they were Jewish. They were killed in Manchester.
I can literally say that about any group. Muslims were killed because there's Christians, there's attack on Christians, and I really do believe there is a war on Christianity. That being said, I'm not going to virtue signal and try to get more hate speech laws and take my own rights and freedoms away because of it. And this makes people not like that community when you start trying to take my freedoms for the benefit of your community.
In the UK because they were Jewish. And they were killed at Bondi Beach in December because they were Jewish and celebrating Hanukkah. And one of the ideas that is in this bill was something that I started promoting 2 years ago based off an incident in my riding, where demonstrators surrounded the Federation CGA Jewish buildings in Montreal that housed the Jewish Public Library and the Holocaust Museum and blocked people from entering the building to go here.
You already have laws on the books to deal with that.
Gaslighting. I do agree. It's gaslighting because all of this can be, and there's already, again, laws in the books to actually prevent it, but you just want to be able to go after people's speech online.
Well, and the ADL and a lot of Jewish rights organizations used to protect free speech at all costs, and now they virtue signal it and want to implement hate speech laws. It's ridiculous. And it's not just Jewish specialty groups, it's Islamic specialty groups. All these specialty groups
the 3 prime ministers saying Islamophobia, Islamophobia, Islamophobia.
All these specialty groups want to take away my rights and freedoms because people are getting hurt like craziness.
When there's already laws in the books to prevent it, but they don't want to use them.
Or leaving the building after work for a period of over 3 hours while the police, the Montreal police, sat there and didn't arrest one person.
Yeah, they should have arrested him, but they don't need hate speech laws in order to do so. Like, okay, let's keep going there.
From Derek Evans, quote, Brampton residents erupt as city leaders approve daycare expansions despite community opposition. The same 3 members keep approving residential daycare expansions even when entire communities show up to oppose them. Nick Shirley might want to look into this.
Nick Shirley might want to look into this, and this is happening in action. So it's not the most glamorous video because this is just literally three Hindus sitting at the desk approving corruption because they've monopolized the city council.
All in favor? All in favor, please raise your hand. All in favor, please raise your hand. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries.
And you can basically pass anything at that point once you get control of the city council.
Yeah, and we're seeing it fully in the UK as well.
The UK is on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important.
Entire towns.
That's why it's important to point these things out before, it's already happening in Canada as well, just not to the extent. But when I talk about Canada now, because I've been so blackpilled and that's why we left the country, I'm talking about it because when Alberta gets its independence, it needs to pay attention to these things.
Yes.
And don't worry about people calling you names.
From the National Post, more than 7,000 Iranians claimed asylum in Canada in 2025, the 3rd largest number by country after India and Haiti. I wonder why they didn't talk about India and Haiti being the number 1 and number 2, but rather want to talk about Iranians being the 3rd largest number. Interesting that in India, they're claiming, a lot of people from India are claiming asylum.
And there's only going to be more now because now they have the right to asylum. So this is going to be more legal asylum seekers coming to Canada. And this is what's happening in the EU. I think we're going to talk about it later. There's all kinds of headlines you've probably seen about the EU is passing harsh immigration laws. They're going to get rid of their immigrants. Yep. That's not going to happen. And it's the same thing Mark Carney's doing. He's saying, I'm slowing down immigration, but he's broadening out the laws behind the scenes to actually make a huge influx in 2020 at the end of 2027 and going into 2028. And the same thing's going to happen in the EU.
But even worse, continuing on regarding elections specifically, from Bruce McGonigal, Liberal MP Stephen McKinnon announces a new election bill which will allow the government to censor content Canadians see online during elections. So there go the free and democratic elections they so want to tout. Knowledge and information is one of the key cornerstones of democracy. You need to be informed to be able to vote. So they're literally now they're just literally saying it out loud. What they want to do, they want to become...
And this is already happening in the EU and the UK, and it's been happening for a long time.
In Canada, you can't even get news through social media now because of stupidity like this. Under this new bill, the Liberal government will oversee any political leadership race and even nomination races for specific ridings in any party.
You gotta wonder if they're going to try to use a lot of this to interfere with the Alberta independence movement come the summertime.
The government assures Canadians this is about censoring misinformation to ensure people get truthful content during elections and to stop foreign interference. Again, they are the ones that decide what misinformation is.
And again, they're going to try to use foreign interference as a narrative come the summertime against Alberta independence. And I'm sure they're going to try to bring censorship to a lot of these issues. The one good thing is now Donald Trump is giving cover to a lot of these social media companies that exist within the United States. So when the Canadian government says censor this issue, they may not, especially Elon Musk.
May not. The number 1 source of misinformation during any given week is the government. It's not even a close contest. And the police have said for years they can't stop foreign interference. CSIS warned us. We had a dozen or more foreign agents sitting as MPs. The government withheld those names heading into the 2025 election as well.
Okay.
These targeted priority amendments address recommendations from the Public Inquiry into Foreign Interference in Federal Electoral Processes and Democratic Institutions, and also from the Chief Electoral Officer and the Commissioner of Canada Elections. Canada's elections belong to Canadians. Outside money, influence, and threats have no place in them. Our new measures will close channels for
And
anonymous and foreign.
And Mark Carney has the by-elections coming up, and if those for some reason don't go his way, he's ahead in the polls, so he's going to call a snap election. So he wants to make sure he sews up every single weakness that could possibly be there.
Foreign funding and help protect federal elections, as well as nomination and leadership contests from undue foreign influence and other threats. We also need to face the very real challenges posed by advanced technologies like artificial intelligence. Sophisticated deepfakes have become more and more convincing and dangerous. Our bill will defend against deepfakes and disinformation so that Canadians can trust what they see and what they hear.
And pause it. If you remember, one of the big effective campaigns that went against UK politicians was putting them in bikinis.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to definitely ban any kind of memes within Canada. They're already trying to ban jokes.
Yeah, and here in Mexico, they're doing the exact same thing almost. And here, even not that I have any trust or any goodwill towards the UN, but even the UN came out to say that is undemocratic. It's funny that they're not coming out to say that this idea is undemocratic. And we like literally, a report came out yesterday saying that Mexico, because of things like this, was now going towards an autocracy and an authoritarian regime by NGOs that now don't want to say the same thing about a country that's doing the exact same thing like Canada. And yes, we were kind of talking about this earlier. Dr. Heisey Classic says, quote, according to her lawyer, Noelia Castillo Ramos cannot change her mind about undergoing unaliving by the government because her organs are already committed.
And this is the MAID program within Spain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they pre-sold her organs, so they forced her into the MAID program after and wouldn't let her out.
Her lawyer highlights the hospital's conflict, and the videos are in Spanish. That's why we're not playing them. Of interest in this case, because Noelia's organs are worth millions in billable charges. The graphic is from the 2025 Million Man Report on transplant charges, so her total would be around 8 million.
Absolutely insane. You should not be able to sell organs, period.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to play the video or no?
No, you can leave it there. It's in Spanish.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I could translate, but it would take a while.
Okay, let's go to the last two stories on YouTube.
And then we'll read all your comments.
Then we'll read comments. So if you have comments, leave them now. And then we're going to head over to RU and BLE. And today we actually have a lot of stories on RU and BLE. Yes. That's where we're headed off YouTube a little early today to Rumble.
Yes. From Holly Doan, quote, Prime Minister Carney says Canada has met NATO obligation to spend $60 billion or 2% of its GDP on military preparedness. No budget document substantiates this $60 billion figure.
Well, and it was supposed to be 5%. Donald Trump upped it because they hadn't met their quota for so many years, and he needs to make up for lost time, especially with the amount of conflicts going on around the world. But we've talked about how Mark Carney has manipulated this and why he doesn't want to show documents. And there was a few scandals that came out that not only Mark Carney, but the EU as well is writing off, oh God, what do you call it? Infrastructure projects as military spending. So if they build roads or bridges, they're calling it military spending on their spreadsheets, and it's pissing off Donald Trump in the United States right now. But they like to have these headlines of we've met our 2%. Well, it's supposed to be 5% now, and even the 2% you're spending on roads and bridges.
And now just to finish off with ridiculousness from Mark Nixon, WTF. She's just the gift that keeps on giving. Olivia Chow's Toronto mayor announces that ICE is not welcome.
There's no ICE in Canada. What is she talking about?
During the World Cup, she said.
This is only going to inflame the U.S. when you have trade negotiations.
Why would ICE agents show up to the city of Toronto?
And Toronto, people that live in Toronto love shit like this, and this is the problem. This is why they're going to be living in squalor when they lose the North American Free Trade Agreement. And then they're going to wonder, why is Trump so mean?
Yeah. Woke-mind virus is a problem in Canada.
Mayor Chow, what do you think about ICE coming to Toronto?
ICE have no place in this city. Toronto is about to welcome thousands and thousands of families because of FIFA World Cup, where everyone belongs. Everyone's welcome. So stay out, ICE. We do not need you here.
I was surprised you didn't have a baseball bat and start dancing.
Yeah, that's regarding the World Cup and the rumors that ICE might show up in other countries and might come to Mexico.
They can't go into other countries and enforce ICE policy. That's ridiculous. It's just the same. They're trying to get TDS going before a potential by-election.
Now we'll read your comments before we head over to RUMBLE. Same channel name. And hold on, I'll read your comments. Harmony Balance says, and I was an educator. Oh, sounds like it by the way you speak. So nice. Harmony says, I really like Mitch Sylvester.
Yeah, he's great. But I would say I think Keith Wilson needs to be the face of the movement going into the summertime.
Canadian Spider-Man says, I don't know who, I hope Carney, but says he didn't.
I will say Mitch Vester is working extremely hard, and he's been doing it for a long time. So thank you to him.
Canadian Spider-Man says, he didn't get slapped enough as a kid. I'm guessing Carney or one of those idiots.
Well, he needs to get slapped as an adult.
In that last picture, it looked like he had something on his cheek. I was going to comment on it. Ghost of Chan says, they are extreme ideologues and they rule your country. So separate and become your own. Troglodyte says, so bring down the carbon emissions, but bring in millions of people. WTAF.
Yeah, actually, we've gone through the statistics, and Canada is one of the countries because it has so much land mass and trees, and the more carbon that's in the atmosphere is actually growing more trees. They're actually a net positive to the environment. It's one of the few countries, yet they have some of the harshest carbon capture laws and these green agendas.
Yeah, Canada is a carbon sink.
Yeah.
So it means it absorbs carbon, and yet it's charging its own people for carbon. Dilbiver says low carbon is for Brookfield. Yeah, and Harmony says, good night all, love and light. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for being here.
Sam says, troglodyte definition of person characterized by reclusive habits or outmoded or reactionary attitudes. Because one of our...
I can't even understand what you said.
Okay, I understood. It's funny. Canadian Spider-Man says, diversity is not a strength past a point, and we are well past it.
Yeah, and you have to get...
And when it's any diversity, too.
And you have to get past this idea of people are going to call you names and you should feel guilty, and you have to buy into these liberal policies because they're going to guilt you into them. Once you're your own country, you're going to have some harsh policies when it comes to your borders, when it comes to your immigration and things like this.
Troglodyte says, actually, my ex didn't want me to have a man cave. She is gone. Now my whole house is a man cave. Don't get ideas. Debiver says...
Oh, my house used to be a man cave as well. I had a mattress on the floor.
On the floor, when I met him. His mattress was on the floor, and he rolled it up during the day. Debiver says...
I made for more room.
Debiver says, UK and Australia are going the same way as Canada. It's all planned. It's the Commonwealth.
Yeah, Donald Trump is having some good effects, but he's only in there for another 3 years. So, I mean, they're literally trying to wait him out.
Troglodyte says Australia has an African machete problem, and their solution was to ask them to give back the machetes, not deporting them.
Well, also, it was interesting when I talk about India, they wanted to get rid of, they had too many snakes, so they offered a dollar amount for the head of each snake you would bring in. So they started getting millions of snakes, but there was even more snakes when they were going out to see how many snakes there were. They thought they were getting rid of them. What happened was people started breeding snakes just to kill them to get the bounty on the snake.
Government programs. Sam says, notice that maple trees, the foundation of the Canadian flag, the current Canadian flag, there was a different one before that was proposed and never used, well, used for a little bit, and then they switched to the maples, are found primarily in eastern and central Canada. Duh. So maybe that could be their flag. And each other, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and maybe British Columbia can have their own flags as their own independent countries. Edward says, Marty up north says, Canada is a banana republic, build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything.
Yeah, it's been a banana republic for the last decade. But even before that, the corruption, the rot's already in the system, and it was going to go this way eventually anyway. So
Sam says, when Easterners visit Calgary, they notice that there is no French anywhere. All of the transit signs, street signs, public messaging, all English. In Vancouver, if you go to Richmond, then you find everything in Mandarin. If you go to Surrey, you find everything in Hindi. So,
well, and I will say this, Pierre Poilievre isn't going to win an election. Mark Carney looks like he's going to secure a majority, and the state of Canada is in absolute ruins. It's the best possible situation to go to the polling booth for Alberta independence. There's not a single reason to stay in Canada at this point.
Troglodyte says, spoiled baby Quebec. Speak my language, please. Or I will fire you. Troglodyte says, speak up, Burton.
Yeah.
You should say that. Yeah, you should start saying that. Sam says, I don't think I can even swear in French on YouTube.
Okay, so leave it out for this time. We'll do it on RUMBLE when we go over.
Sam says, I wonder if... Sam says, I wonder if the tampon instructions in defense men's bathrooms are in both languages. Probably. Canadian Spider-Man says, do not mess with Russia. Right, correct, exactly correct, guy.
Yeah.
And that's what they want to do because they have no money. They have no way to get any more money.
It would be a different situation if you weren't literally having the largest unprotected border in the world with Russia to your north and you're refusing to defend it. And America's offering you help and you're saying no. But you're giving massive amounts of money to Ukraine in order to propagate that war even more. And then you're putting the Ukraine-Canadian flag together in your propaganda, trying to start World War III. Not a good idea for Canada.
Troglodyte says, F in Trudeau saying, can I say that motto from Ukraine or no? Is that allowed on YouTube?
I don't know.
Okay. Saying the motto from Ukraine at the summit on peace, embarrassing and ridiculous.
Yeah.
And again, it's all part of the messaging. Sam says Trudeau is a child. He never grew up and he was only a drama teacher and was always overly coddled by both his fathers.
Yeah, but Carney's far, far worse. And we're seeing that because he's able to somehow still get a majority with driving the Canadian economy off a cliff. He's one of the economic global architects of what was supposed to be the new economy, which he still is trying to bring in by waiting Trump out. But he's going to destroy Canada in the process.
Troglodyte says, speak French and send us money in equalization.
Yeah, exactly. You should be speaking Albertan with all the money they're giving you.
Canadian Spider-Man says, bread and circuses. And Troglodyte says, what? No Punjabi? And Canadian Spider-Man says, I'm guessing about Keith Wilson, but he's another lawyer or somebody else. I don't know. Sam says, the fact that Keith Wilson is just a logical independent supporter is good enough for me.
Well, and Quebec's allowed to have really stringent rules on their immigration policies. But when the rest of Canada tries to do it, it's frowned upon.
Joe Montana, hello, haven't seen you in a while, says, hey guys, love your show, but can you do at least half the show for geopolitics? You're beating Alberta to death. I really love the geo shows. Thanks.
When we go to Rumble today, we actually have a ton of stories. A lot of them are geopolitics, but it's going to be mainly Alberta until at least the vote goes down, and even after that for quite a while. I think we're going to may add in more geopolitics onto Rumble.
Sam says, it's Alberta time, Joe. Between now and October, we need to get this done. And we have attacks coming at us from every direction. But I do hear you. And I do hear you too. And I actually do really like the geopolitics shows. Maybe I can convince you to do like half an hour at some point in some day.
Maybe in the morning time, I'll start one.
Oh, great. More work. Sam says, Alberta independence is one of the biggest
The night show is going to be Alberta independence, period. And even after the vote, once we get our independence, there needs to be even more coverage to make sure the Constitution is right, to make sure the founding of the nation's right. This is something that happens not even once in a lifetime. It rarely happens in history where you're going to found a nation like this.
I mean, also maybe we can bring in some subjects from elsewhere.
I can do a morning show.
I want to do it too.
Okay, then you can't get ready in the morning. That's why we stopped doing the morning show in the first place.
Sam says Alberta independence is one of the biggest topics worldwide. We're talking splitting Canada apart, splitting a country apart. Exactly.
It's going to be the biggest subject to come this summertime. People just don't realize.
Troglodyte says the closer the collapse of the empires, the crazier its laws are, attributed to Cicero. Good saying. Sam says the empire will do everything they can to strike back.
Well, we're going to see what happens because I've been game planning this out in my head. And if he actually lets it go to a vote, he's going to be hamstring because Donald Trump is right there and he's going to support Alberta independence. And a lot of his plays are taken off the board. So if Carney wants to do something, he's going to need to stop the vote from happening in the first place. So that's what I'm going to be looking for him to do in some way, shape, or form. The most likely avenue that I've been able to game plan out in my head is the Emergencies Act. And just saying the vote can't take place because of foreign interference or something like that.
Sam says, back in 79, I bought a bag of the green stuff in St. Vincent in the Virgin Islands with Canadian Tire money. And Canadian Spider-Man says, yes, that means you need to smoke much less of it because it's stronger. Good. But especially for young people that think that it's a good alternative to other things. Again, I'm a sober advocate, so that's all you're gonna get from me. Joe Rush, hello.
Although we were at the store the other day and you were looking for non-alcoholic Guinness because you heard they started making it.
Because I used to like Guinness. It's been 10 years. Joe Rush says CBD, hello, by the way. CBD is for pain. THC makes you happy. I'm 57. I've been smoking for arthritis, tendonitis, and bursitis. Works for me. And I think in the medical sense, it does work. But again, you're doing it in a medical and hopefully medically slightly at least controlled way. I think with teenagers, teenage men especially, that have been proven to be susceptible to the schizophrenic effects, especially of the stronger strains, that needs to be at least looked at. Or they have to be told about it.
Well, I think the propaganda went so hard one way with the war on drugs in the United States, and that took shape globally. And now it's going so hard the other way, especially when the government's the one manufacturing and selling the product. They don't want to talk about possible side effects to it.
Joe Rush
but
says,
I think the truth is really somewhere in the middle there, and it has massive medical purposes.
Joe Rush says, by the way, hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you for being here. Sam says, don't do pot and drive. Outside of that, it's way better than alcohol. I'm kind of against
that's
both.
part of the problem. This narrative with pot and driving, they're saying, oh, it's okay to smoke pot and drive.
Well, he's saying don't.
Yeah, I know. But that's how far a lot of the propaganda has gone, is trying to say it's safe to do pot and drive. I've smoked pot before, and trust me, I couldn't drive when I was smoking pot. I know some people can, but it's definitely not as safe as driving sober.
Joe Rush says, I don't drive high either. Good. Even when you take some medications, you shouldn't be driving. I mean, you're moving. We've become so accustomed to driving, but you're moving who knows how many ton metal machine that could injure others as well. It goes far beyond just you, and if you can do it, it goes into the harm you could cause others.
Well, that's why they want to get rid of cars.
Oh, yeah.
That's...
Sam says, take a trip and never leave the farm. And I think that at least has to be discussed about more.
Yeah.
Joe Rush says, I'm more about the CBD due to arthritis in my arms, legs, and spine, tendonitis in my legs, and bursitis in my shoulders, but I'm still fully functional with the help of God's medicine.
Yeah.
Again, medically, I think it has good applications.
Well,
with
and you know what's helping you.
Yeah.
And it's going to be definitely better than getting addicted to painkillers for sure.
Yes. In that sense, yes. And also older people are less susceptible to the effects that some strains can have on underlying schizophrenia. So Joe Rush says, I'm also Albertan, for those who didn't know. We know. Sam says, it's well documented as a therapeutic drug. And in that case, I do agree with it as therapeutic with some sort of aid from someone or someone checking in on you. Sam says, are you live on Rumble? Yes, and we're heading over there now.
We have 2, 4, 6.
We have a lot of stories.
2, 4, 6, 8 stories. Usually we have 3 or 4 today. There was a lot of crazy stories that we couldn't talk about on YouTube.
Things we can't say over here, but our RUMBLE or Rumble username is over there. You can go to rumble.com and find us there. We're already live streaming. We've been live streaming this whole time.
And before we leave YouTube, next week we're changing we're changing our schedule. We're going to be broadcasting Monday to Friday from 5 to 7 p.m. Alberta time, and that's our permanent schedule for our live streams. Our edited videos will be every Saturday and Sunday going forward, except this week. And then we're going to try to have an interview every Wednesday, hopefully.
With people within the movement or that correlate to Alberta independence.
Yeah, and I think right now we're the only show that's Alberta independence Monday through Friday. So it's a regular source of news.
Also, if you haven't subscribed yet here on YouTube, please do so because it really does help us out, especially here on YouTube. So go ahead and do that, and we'll see you over at Rumble in a few seconds.